Anytime now, Sitch.
Oh, it's up to me. It's okay.
Twice as big now.
It's your boy, PSA Sitch. I'm very excited, even though the stream died, because Friended doesn't know how to click little boxes when he's setting things up.
Oh man, you saw those boxes as I had to reset up another stream. You're like,
there were a lot of boxes to check.
It's pretty complicated. So let us know in the stream if you can hear me now. We did a little test stream, so you should be able to hear me fine. Chat. Anyone in the chat? Can you hear us? Are we doing good?
I can hear you.
Okay.
So that's all that matters.
So we're gonna be talking about this Dave Rubin show with, I guess Dave Rubin did a show beforehand with Eric Weinstein and Jordan Peterson, and this is the second show. It's about an hour long. Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Eric Weinstein, and Jordan Peterson. Did I say Jordan Peterson twice? Dave Rubin. He's the guy that I'm leaving out. So beforehand, on the last stream that went down, I had asked you what you thought, if you had any thoughts about the stream, that you just a broad overview. And I think you were telling us about that.
I was saying it was nice to have Eric Weinstein kind of be a liberal pushing back against some of Ben Shapiro's right-wing bubble talk, because usually you don't get to see that.
Yeah, but you talked about the first half of the stream being interesting.
The first 10 minutes is kind of boring, and everyone's sucking each other's dicks because they're like, Joe Rogan's so awesome. And it's like, yeah, we all know Joe Rogan's awesome, you know. But before we get into that, New Renaissance, who asked about Rationality Rules. I don't know if you've seen his channel, but I have.
I have many
He's the guy
times.
with the long hair. I didn't recognize his name. Seems like a guy you'd want to attack because he's all attacking Jordan Peterson, and it seems like he's an anti-theist.
I made a response video, an off-the-cuff response video to Rationality Rules. I tweeted it out to him. It didn't get many views. It was like maybe in the 200 range. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Thanks, I'll watch it." He never responded to me. I had talked to the debates channel. What's the name? Non Sequitur. I did a debate on Non Sequitur with Godless Engineer, if anyone wants to check it out. I'm under the impression I totally destroyed him. So, but obviously the anti-theists say I got destroyed. I mean, he literally makes an argument in the debate that religion is not sustainable, which I'm like, what? Religion's been around for 2,000 years. How's it not sustainable? Christianity's been around for 2,000 years, but religion has been around for as long as mankind has been around. You can make an argument for. So I don't know if maybe you agree with him that religion is unsustainable.
No, that's dumb. We got another super chat.
Yeah, you want to read it?
From Cult of the Lich, from the Filipino Piso. Is that how you say it? For 125 pesos. Hashtag McCarthy did nothing wrong. I don't agree with that. Fuck you, Cult of the Lich.
Do they mention McCarthyism in the Rubin report? I think they might. I think that might be why he's talking about it.
I don't remember.
But the broad overview that I had was everyone keeps interrupting Eric Weinstein.
Yes, that's true.
Not letting him make one single point. You can obviously see who's low man on the totem pole in the intellectual dark web. And it's funny to me that Dave Rubin thinks he's part of the intellectual dark web, and I think he might be a part of the dark web part, but not the intellectual.
Well, he's like the mom driving the soccer van full of the kids.
Yes, exactly.
Like she's not part of the team, you know.
But she doesn't realize it. She's like, come on.
She's cheering from the stands. I'm part of the soccer team, everybody.
Yeah. So shall we jump into it, or do you want to?
Let's jump into it.
We also noticed that Dave Rubin gets his theme song from the ringtone on Skype. So check it out. Hey, how come you're not dancing around, Sitch?
Because you didn't animate me.
You're
to
just sitting there. Oh man, we need.
It's all up to you.
we need you to do some dancing. Wonder if I'm gonna get a copyright strike for this. I better move forward.
I don't think so.
Guys, I got a Peterson, I got a Shapiro, I got a Weinstein, I got a Rubin. I feel I should go to you first because
Reid using a Canadian. Yeah. There it is.
I saw that movie. It was pretty good.
Not bad.
All right, you're on Real Time tonight, and I thought that it's an interesting little piece of all of this. Because
did you see the Real Time?
I did see the Real Time.
Thoughts?
You know, and I was going to say it was kind of a waste. I wish this conversation had gone longer instead of them cutting it short for him to go and do nothing on Bill Maher's show.
Bill Maher's kind of laid into him a little bit, though. Bill Maher.
Oh, he's super late into him.
Yeah, Bill Maher went on the Trump is the end of Western civilization rant, and Ben Shapiro. I mean, Ben Shapiro didn't really defend Trump. He's like, I'm going to defend Trump when Trump is bad, you know, or I'm going to defend Trump when Trump is good, but not when he's bad. So, which is the right course of action, obviously.
Right. Well, Bill's been kind of batshit crazy on the Trump derangement syndrome area.
Exactly.
Because we're sort of all out of the mainstream, but we kind of dance in there every now and again. You probably dance.
The we. Well, has Rubin been on any of these shows?
I'm part of the team, guys.
I mean, Rubin, you might see Dave Rubin on the local news, like the news.
Well, he's been doing all the live shows. That's probably what he's talking about, right?
With Peterson, yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to cue up. There's a clip where Peterson, they did a green room live stream on Peterson's channel, and Dave Rubin is like begging, why am I not? You're the big lobster. Why do you have 1 million subs and I only have 750,000? It's so bad. It's so bad. Someone needs to do a compilation of all of Dave Rubin's shitty introductions of people, because he has people on his show. Like, I'm serious. Like, he had Eric Weinstein on and Brett Weinstein on at the same time, and he damn near calls him out for wearing a toupee. Like in the first 10 seconds, I'm like, way to go, way to make a guy feel comfortable in your studio. Hey, is that a rug? Like,
he's just asking questions, okay?
I think he actually brings up the hair in the Jordan Peterson Eric Weinstein. I thought, oh my God, like, do you have any self-consciousness?
In there a little more than the rest of us. You gonna smack around Maher tonight or what?
You know, I think that it'll probably be pretty cordial. I mean, I think that Maher is secretly one of us. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that Maher is tired of the. I mean, his show was called Politically Incorrect. I mean,
okay,
I think
I don't remember the New York Times article, but okay, so we have to. What is the definition of the intellectual dark web? Like, what do you have to do to be part of it?
There's been a lot. There's been a lot of videos on that, and I've kind of been watching. There was one video that I was contemplating posting part of, and now I can't remember the name of the guy. It's two black guys, and they do a podcast together. God, I wish
you're so racist.
Well, they technically are black, but
colorblind.
One of the guys would technically be part of the intellectual dark web. God, if someone in the chat can remember the name of that podcast. But they were talking about membership. Brett Weinstein was talking about membership on that podcast, and how they want to kind of go slow with the membership thing because they don't want people to appropriate the intellectual dark web, which people kind of are prone to do at times. Like, they don't want it to become a conservative thing or a liberal thing. They're really trying to walk that centrist line.
Well, I ask because it's like, if it only means that you're not a tribalist, then I guess Ben Shapiro would be part of it. But, you know, he's really far into the right-wing bubble. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he's not a neo. You know, he's not a true free thinker like us enlightened individuals. So I question whether he deserves to be part of the intellectual dark web.
Blogging Heads TV, yes, that is it. What's the name of the two guys that do Blogging Heads TV? There's one main guy and then another guy that he has on all the time. There's a video, the Aspen Institute video with Jordan Peterson has the one guy that's always on Blogging Heads TV call out Jordan Peterson about the trans pronouns. It's a great clip. You got to watch that Aspen Institute video. So, but so you think, I think Ben Shapiro is not necessarily. I mean, conservatives have an advantage over liberals in that a lot of times conservatives can see what liberals are understand. Conservatives tend to understand liberals better than liberals understand conservatives. So
well, we had a disagreement about this at VidCon. So I still don't agree with you, but
well, but you're an unusual liberal. Like you're someone, or would you?
Well, I'm not basing it off of my own experience. I'm just basing it off of, when you see the right wing part of Twitter bitching about something, it's like, it's the same bullshit that even you see the left wing Twitter bitching about something. They don't seem like they have a more nuanced, enlightened understanding of where the left is coming from.
Yeah, there's a level of hatred there that kind of the first rule of moral psychology is morality binds and blinds. And like the more you're bound, the more you're blind. So I agree with you there. But you don't think Ben Shapiro understands the left and understands where they're coming from? I don't think he does. I think everyone probably knows a Ben Shapiro in their life. Okay, it's someone who is smart, is very type A, very driven. Mm-hmm. Okay, and they don't understand why the rest of the world doesn't operate the way they do. So that's why I say that Ben Shapiro is kind of in his own bubble. He doesn't understand that not everyone has that like biological chanced, luck of having that motivational energy to get out there and, make something of their life. Right. Glenn Laurie and John McWhorter are the two guys on Blogging Heads TV. So I believe it's John McWhorter. Well, I'm not sure now which one was talking about being a part of the intellectual dark web with Brett Shapiro, but there's a really good clip you guys should check out on that. So I think we might actually be in disagreement over Ben Shapiro. I think Ben Shapiro is actually pretty enlightened. But I have a word for people on the left that are in the bubble. I call them libtards. And I have a word for people who are on the right that are in the bubble. I call them conservatards. And you're making the case that Ben Shapiro is a conservatard. No, see, and I don't he's not a tribalist. He's not a tribalist. Okay. So that's because he'll criticize Trump and all that stuff. Right. So he falls somewhere in the center then. Well, he's just consistent to his principles. Right, which is like free markets and all that stuff. That's probably where you disagree. Well, he's libertarian-y, isn't he? I don't know. Because usually most libertarians are like that. They're not tribalist. Well, they're tribalist to them, their own niche, but not to the Republicans. Libertarians tend to focus only on liberty, and he's very much like Jewish, culturally conservative. So I think God, you're such an anti-Semite. Well, he's wearing a yarmulke. God, you're so bad. It's funny, am I allowed to call people by the most distinctive? You're not allowed. The only reason I'm saying that he's Jewish is because it falls into the he's wearing a yarmulke. I don't know how much more conservative Jewish you get. You're saying he's asking for it. Wearing it. You should have seen what he was wearing. Asking for what? I don't know. You're the Hitler Youth over here. Maybe we should go on before we get. We should go on.
He is tired of the identity politics. I think he's tired of the intersectional nonsense. I think that he wants to have some open conversation.
Now that is complete bullshit. If you remember, we've been talking for a long time, but he's saying Bill Maher is tired of the identity politics. What?
Well, he is. He's tired of SJW. He's tired of SJW crap.
He's not tired of the identity politics.
He just hates Trump.
Yeah, but it's all identity politics with him. Carl's Jr. for $2 says, LOL, no, Shapiro is supremely tribal. Israel first. Oh no, it's gonna. Who brought up the Jewish thing? It's gonna start getting bad in here.
It was funny because my parents watched Bill Maher and they sent me a message. They'd never seen Ben Shapiro before, and they were like, who's this annoying guy on Bill Maher's show? And of course he had to be Jewish.
Oh man.
just think that he's tied politically to the left. So I'll be interested to see how much of that he goes after. You know, how much Trump talk there is, which I find utterly uninteresting, is the truth, and how much of it will be about kind of broader issues of freedom of speech and civility and having decent conversations. Because I think that he's on the right side of those issues. I mean, I've played him on my show, right? And I disagree with him on everything politically, but I played clips of him on my show, specifically on those issues, and him cracking the whip on people on the identity politics nonsense, and I think we're on the same page there.
Well, if he wants to be...
See, that's totally tribal. He's like, I played clips of him on my show, you know, when he's beating people up on the left.
So you're making my point for me, is what you're doing.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, no, he is a bit tribal.
Yeah.
Self-engineer says it's John McWhorter who was at the Aspen Ideas Festival. Yeah, John McWhorter made an attempt to really call Jordan Peterson out. It's a great clip. The Aspen Institute did a great interview. I looked up the girl in the interview. She's obvious. She seems like a feminist. And I went immediately to the internet. I thought, okay, I'm gonna get a bunch of I'm gonna get the lowdown on this reporter. And all the stuff on the internet was actually really good. She was she's in an interview on MSNBC where she's against Me Too, and she's talking about how Me Too is totally going off the rails. So even though she was pushing back on Peterson in that interview, she really seemed to be against the SJW identity politics stuff. I couldn't really find any smoking gun on her. I don't know that they're going to mention Nellie Bowles. I think they mentioned Nellie Bowles in the other interview. But once we're done with this, I have a nice clip of the woman who she did the enforced monogamy quote to try to lambaste Jordan Peterson, and also she was the one that wrote the first article in the New York Times against James Damore. So you'll get to see her in all her Valley Girl glory.
Oh, God.
Be an effective advocate for the left, he should lead the march in dissociating the moderate left from the radical, unreasonable left. Someone's got to do it, because the strategy that they're abiding by right now is pretty damn self-destructive. And he's in a good position to do that, and I think he's motivated to do it because he is a free speech guy, being a comedian and everything.
It's risky. I think.
So you see these two heads over here nodding, like, oh yeah, radical left, get him. Over here, he's like, kind of, you can see him like,
Also, Bill Maher is not in any position to lead that. He said the N-word.
Oh my God, yeah, totally. And he falls into that. I don't see Bill Maher as being above identity politics in the least bit. So maybe I'm wrong.
I think the bar is just anyone who's not an SJW.
Yeah, we'll see. But the SJWs have a habit of, if you're not going to conform, throwing you out on your ass, right?
You take your life in your hands if you're the leftist who says that right now. If you're the person on the left who does this, I mean, you did it and survived. But that's
I'm retired from the left.
That's
now.
right. You also you found a bunch of new friends, right? I mean, that's really what people have to understand, is that when you take these positions, yes, there are going to be a lot of people who decide that you are Satan, but there's going to be a whole lot of people who are your new friends, who are ready to have these conversations, which is why, again, this sort of IDW term that Eric coined is so fascinating, because...
I just want to jump in here because the inverse of what Ben Shapiro is saying, like when your tribe throws you out or you leave your tribe, you end up finding new friends. The inverse of that is your tribe holds you to a certain position. And a lot of people don't really want to accept that a lot of their positions are the result of their social circles, which is straight out of Jonathan Haidt. It's like the social intuitionist model is driving so much of our thinking, if not on a conscious level, a lot of times on an unconscious level.
And I never liked or understood that, the kind of Dave Rubin-esque idea where it's like, oh, if I don't like some aspect of my tribe, or then I have to leave them and join like a new tribe. It's like, just fuck tribes, It doesn't make sense. Like
exactly.
Right. Like, I still have mostly liberal positions on, most issues that are not SJW related. I'm not suddenly like not a liberal now because of, because they're fucking everything up.
The the thing that is really dissolved is the idea that there should be some kind of cordialness between people who disagree. Like that's really what's breaking down, is the social norms that we were very robust are not as robust as they once were.
Civility.
Yes, civility, exactly. Civility's in the dumpster and it's on fire.
Everyone disagrees with everyone about nearly everything in this group. But because we don't want to shut down the conversation, it's created this whole audience for every one of us. Like each one of us, our audience has increased tremendously just by being part of conversations with one another.
So that's it to me. What is it you guys think about us and this wider group?
Awesome,
and
dude.
just the awesomeness and the amazingness and all that. But like-minded people.
Notice how Rubin loves to include himself in that us.
I didn't notice that till you pointed out. It's like every time it's like us.
God, it's
we're doing it. You know, it's like
it's so cringy.
We're being so mean to Rubin. I feel bad.
He's you know, when there's like the group photo, Rubin's the guy that always tries to like maneuver himself to the center of the photo. He's
right.
Oh, I'm almost there. Did you see Anna Kasparian like fully just like kicking his ass?
No.
You haven't seen it? Oh my God. If anyone hasn't seen it, look it up. Anna Kasparian like puts Rubin down pretty vehemently.
Someone tweeted
awesome.
it. I don't remember who, and they were saying, "Oh, she's just jealous because he's like way more successful than them."
What she says is, I mean, it's behind the scenes type stuff, and I don't. I have never really thought Rubin had strong opinions. I think that's why he doesn't fight back, which is not necessarily a bad way to be, but I mean, you have to put some thought into what kind of opinions you want to put out in the world, especially if you're in a situation like we're in, where you're publicly declaring your opinions, or Rubin is even more so because he's got a much bigger platform. But there is another option. Just don't put your opinions out there. And I always feel like Rubin is kind of in that. I don't feel like he puts his opinions out there as much as some of us do. Carl's Jr. for $5 says, by the way, Israel is superior to the rest of the Middle East, but who does America fight their
but why?
But why does America fight their battles? I love Israel otherwise. Well, we make all the weapons.
We just give them money. I mean, do we fight their battles? I think they fight a lot of our battles, don't they? Like, we get them to do, like, shady shit that we don't want to do.
I don't know. I don't keep up on Middle East politics enough. I'm into the psychology stuff. I like to know how people think.
I got to get more anti-theist.
I love doing that.
To be the examples that are sitting here, that it is, for all the differences that we've talked about on gay marriage and abortion and death penalty and all of these things that I know we all have various disagreements on, why are we all okay with that, and so many people outside of this seem to not be okay?
Well, I think it has to do with the fact that most of us are confident. There's a sort of a principle of faith in rationality that I'm not that worried about a lot of the things that the far left is very concerned about, because I have an idea that more or less, if you do the reasoning correctly, everything is going to work out pretty much okay. And I think that we have the dexterity in changing our minds, admitting that when we're wrong, when we've changed a perspective, stealing each other's ideas and giving credit. So that I have a sense that if Ben and I have not gone toe-to-toe on abortion, for example, and I have an idea of the outlines of his position. He probably has some idea of mine. But my guess is that he's not going to go bananas on spermicide, and I'm not going to be advocating for the right to abort a child a day before its due date, except for extraordinary circumstances. And even then, I'm not sure. But I think that what it is
so I guess that
kind
answers
of confidence.
The question of Ben Shapiro not being a libertarian.
Yeah, because he's on abortion. Yeah, he's not pro-choice. The other thing is, Well, first of all, we're doing a drinking game here, so every time Eric Weinstein gets interrupted, you have to take a drink. And also, the whole time he was talking about the confidence thing and we're rational and reasonable, the whole time I kept thinking, that guy's got FU money, that guy's got FU money, that guy's got FU money. Like they all have FU money. So,
Right.
Like, yeah, it's super easy to be confident when isn't that guy a venture capitalist? Like he's got VC money, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, he's got a shit ton of money. But I think he meant confident in that they could be civil towards each other, not confident that they won't be, attacked by society.
Yeah. Well, they're at they have the luxury of being more independent. They're not as tied to any kind of organization. And the problem is these organizations, they get this ethos that everyone is super into, and they start moralizing like crazy, like the Google situation, where they've got the SJW ethos just dripping out of them, and everyone wants to point the finger if people don't conform to that ethos. So they're developing a new ethos, and that ethos is trying to revive the civility between people who disagree. But at Google, it's like, if you disagree, what? You disagree with our stance on transgender pronouns? Oh, you're fired. Right? That's a hate crime.
Right.
Confidence that you can allow the other person in a discussion to actually have a genuine position and that you can contend with it. And what we need to do is to push out more of the cognitive Lego that gives us that confidence to more people, so that they can say, I don't need to fear the pro-choice and pro-life are both really limited positions, in my opinion. And it's just an example of one of many things that we have gained the confidence with each other that it's not going to devolve into name calling if everybody plays in an honest fashion and uses the full capacity.
That's where it is. I mean, the honest fashion thing is, I think, what counts. I asked Sam about this earlier, so I was just doing a podcast with Sam, right? Because we all hang out together. It's pathetic. Our
Apparently
little social
lunch,
circle is 7 people.
Lunch with his mother was more important than us.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll concede.
But what?
You know who they're talking about?
Sam Harris, aren't they?
Yeah. Sam Harris evidently had lunch with his mom instead of coming on the show. I don't know. We'd be looking at the back of Sam Harris's head right now.
Yeah, where would he be sitting? he'd be hanging from the ceiling, like in one of those like Mission Impossible things.
No way. Dave Rubin will be standing over here.
Facing the wall.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm honestly very sorry.
What I asked Sam about this, and what Sam said is that he thinks that what has changed is that there's a bunch of us who are not interested in the stupidest version of the argument.
Right.
So if I want to hear a pro-choice argument, I want to hear the most sophisticated version of the pro-choice argument, and then see if I make an argument against that. I don't want the simplistic version of the pro-choice argument just so I can knock down the simplistic version of the pro-choice argument. Yes, it makes for a great Ben Shapiro Destroys video, right. but it's more fun for me. Like personally, I really much more enjoy engaging with the best ideas that somebody else has to offer than engaging with the worst ideas that you can pick out of a hat on Twitter.
That's really cool.
Well, so
You hear that, rationality rules? We are the steelmen here. We want to take on Jordan Peterson's actual argument.
Right.
Yeah. He's got a couple of videos like on Peter. Well, I think he's up to maybe 4 or 5 or maybe 6 videos on Jordan Peterson. So he's go ahead.
I try to watch them, and it's like, I don't know. I don't care. I really don't care about the whole, he's talking about Christian dogma and Christian values. And I don't know. I just don't care at all. Like, I don't know why people are so bothered by that. It's just so uninteresting.
His videos are all word games too. So I fall into the same category. Like, I don't care either, because it's just about defining terms. His whole argument boils down to that guy is using words in a way that I don't approve of. Mm-hmm. So, like, okay, whatever.
So, I mean, one of the things that was useful for me, for example, in this protracted discussion with Sam, is that my arguments are better now than they were.
Are you shaving over there?
You can hear that.
What is that?
Someone's cutting their lawn.
That's awesome.
I don't know why. It's like 7 o'clock at night. I don't know what was doing the lawn.
Do you ever notice that sometimes on Rubin Report, he'll be interviewing someone and you'll hear like a car washing in the background?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he lives in West Hollywood, so I can only assume like this set is in his garage, and all the garages in West Hollywood are like on an alley. So I just imagine some guy like right outside the studio, like washing his VW as they're doing.
We're gonna see one time like where the camera is. That's like the garage door is gonna open, and his mom's gonna like try to pull into the garage. And in the middle of the conversation,
headlights. Oh my God! You could probably animate that. That would be awesome. That'd be awesome.
And you might say, well, why do you care if your arguments are better? And the reason I care about whether my arguments are better is because I know that my arguments are part of the toolkit that I use to operate effectively in the world. Like, arguments aren't just some abstraction that you hold that's disconnected from your actions in the world. And if my arguments are more fine-tuned and sharper, and if I'm able to account for a wider range of phenomena because someone has put forward facts that were hard for me to incorporate, then my toolbox is much more efficient and I can operate more effectively in the world. So I find it, well, it's a variant of your position. It's like, I want to hear the best versions of the arguments that run counter to mine, because I'd like to figure out where I'm wrong, and I'd like to make what I'm doing better. And that's more important to me. It is literally more important to me than making sure that what I already know is right. Like, I'm confident in what I know, but I also know that I could do a better job of expressing it, that it could be, the system could be more dynamic, it could take more things into account. Like, I've got plenty to learn, and a real discussion with someone who objects to you, that's where you learn. So
I think
more power to that.
Fundamentally, I would say
This is
that
what I
I think
meant
there's pretty easy
when I
tests.
said that, like, the beginning is just a lot of dick sucking. Like, everyone's like, oh, we're just so smart and awesome, you know, we want to hear the truth. It's like, okay, whatever, you know.
The stuff that they're arguing about, though, I'm particularly interested in the Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson debate, but on a sociological level, I mean, debate is not how you answer those questions. I mean, you really have to dig into the science. Like, to tell who is right or wrong on the Sam Harris Jordan Peterson divide, they're not going to be able to figure that out in a debate. It's just pure entertainment. So,
Right.
Is when someone catches you out on a part of the argument that you've made, that you know was flawed, and someone catches you out, do you smile or do you get angry? Right? I think it really is almost that easy, because the truth is that
what do you do if you're Jake or Hugo?
What do you mean?
Do you smile or do you get angry?
Oh. They smile on stream and then they get angry at you on Twitter.
Oh man, so true.
there is something fun about the idea of having to rethink your position, and something adventurous about the idea that you haven't thought everything through, that there are these new vistas of thought that maybe you haven't considered before, and it does.
He makes it sound like it's a date with a new girl. It's the greatest thing. Like, having your whole reality and social circle change. It's an adventure. Having your life crumble in front of your eyes. It's magical.
Going into existential chaos. It's just so amazing.
Exactly. Walking the line between chaos and order.
Hone you. It makes you better at it. And it also allows you to, listen, life is...
Teaches you how to make friends fast.
It's funny, and it's funny that we're flawed human beings and that our logic is flawed. So there's a certain humor to the idea that somebody is exposing a rift in your thinking that you now have to deal with. It makes life fun. If you were just a stone all the time, it would be really boring.
We kind of got there, because when we did the abortion discussion, my position basically, I think, is similar to yours, which is that at 20 weeks where they've shown that the fetus can feel pain, that to me is the cutoff. I describe myself as begrudgingly pro-choice, but you said to me, well, if you're acknowledging that it's a life at 20, well, then it's obviously a life at 18. Now, to be completely cogent in my argument, I have to concede that point to you. It didn't move me to tell you that I'm going to now agree with you on this, on what the policy should be. But we can do that, and we didn't punch each other after, and it's all right.
Yeah, but and then what if somebody comes in and says, well, life or not life is a Boolean, and the problem is in computer science is one of casting, which is if you make it a float, and you're talking about the degree of life, or the meaning of the life, or the quality of the life, does that change things? And so, this idea about may I break your frame? Well, I'd prefer if we stayed in it for a little while, but then let's explore that in a second. And so there's sort of a generosity of spirit argument. And I think that, quite frankly, one of the strangest things about this group of people is that I find it spectacularly non-egoic in terms of when we have a dinner. I don't have a sense that anybody needs to lead. I mean, it's as close as I've seen like a round table where the sheer pleasure of talking to people at in a time, this is a McCarthy-like time. And
ding, 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 ding.
I feel so happy to be at a table in which I can talk about things.
In which I get interrupted almost every 5 minutes in the second half of this.
That are troubling me or bring out something I worry that says something negative about myself, that I'm having these thoughts, that nobody wants to be booted out of the group by virtue of grandstanding. And I think that kind of, it's really interesting watching people who would be thought of as being highly egoic behaving in a non-egoic fashion.
I think that part of that too is one of the things Dave and I have talked about, and the technology is enabling this, is that, because I've looked at this group and thought, well, why in the world did it ever get categorized as a group? Because it's a strange group. And there's some reasons. Pretty much everybody who's in it is entrepreneurial in the fundamental sense, in that everybody's created their own little domain, and it's kind of hard to knock them over because they're in their domain. So we're not reliant in some important sense on external funding, let's say.
Did he just say F you money?
I think he did.
To enable us to continue. So that gives us a certain amount of freedom. But another part of it is that, as far as I can tell, everybody who's participated believes that their audience is intelligent. And I think that that's also a reflection of that.
Did Ben just almost laugh? Did you catch that?
I wasn't looking at the screen.
Ben was like, my audience is intelligent. Yeah, right.
Oh, okay.
It's not lack of intellectual self-confidence. It is lack of commitment to your set of ideas, like as if they're axiomatically true. But that spills over to the attitude towards the audience. Like, I don't feel that I'm there to tell my audience a bunch of things that they need to know that I already know. When I'm conducting my tour, it's like, well, here's a bunch of ideas that I'm confused about still, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to explore them, and I'm going to explore them with you, and you guys are going to come along for the ride, and that's going to be good for everyone. I really saw that with Harris in Vancouver, because we had as high level an intellectual discussion as we could manage, and I would say it was approximately at the same level as a good PhD defense when the defense is going well, and the audience was with us the whole way, and they're participating in this discourse process. Far more important to participate in the process of discourse than to specify the outcome. And the audience had made that decision and abided by it while we were doing the discussion.
I think that's the right way to describe it. I think that is the difference between, I think that's why, like Joe Rogan, for example, is so popular. When I listen to Joe, I know he's going on an intellectual journey that's going to take...
All right, Joe Rogan rules. Cult of the Lich says, for 125 PHP, all I'm saying is, can you verify the evidence that McCarthy did anything wrong? Sitch?
Well, I have no idea what, the specifics of every person he accused of being a communist, of whether they were or not. But the thing is, in our free speech, free association democracy, it shouldn't matter. People are allowed to be communist in our country if they want to be. I mean, that's the whole fucking point of being American.
Yeah.
Isn't it? That you can do, you can believe whatever you want.
You can be all that you can be.
Right.
And if that,
so that's why I don't
leads
like McCarthy.
to we've had a particularly tortured past with communism, so that's part of that morality binds and blinds thing. Communism was the great evil, so
right.
It's dangerous, though. It is dangerous.
Of course, but it's also like what else is dangerous is the alt-right. That's the same fascism and white nationalism in our history has shown to be very dangerous. So you could go to the same conclusion as McCarthy and say, oh, well, we need to stamp out any of these white alt-righters and not allow them to meet or talk or blah 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 or whatever.
Yeah. Having things in balance is really the key. Making society work is a lot like juggling.
Well, Cult of the Lich said not when you're getting paid directly by the enemy country. I don't know if, Russia was funding or the USSR was funding, Hollywood back then, but I'm not very learned on it, so.
Yeah, we'll have to look into it.
3 hours. I don't know where the destination is going to be, but I know that the journey is going to be a lot of fun, and I think that that's what makes for success in this field. And so much of our politics, so much of our intellectual life has become what you're talking about, standing on a stage and people yelling at you what you ought to think.
If you're a good person.
Right.
Right, that's what it really
exactly. And it's no fun. I mean, it's a lot more
Joe
fun.
does the same thing that great authors do. It's like a distinction between Dostoevsky and Ayn Rand. It's like, you know where Rand is going to end, right from the beginning. Whereas if you read a Dostoevsky novel, you have no damn idea where that's going to come out, and neither did he. So he was exploring the ideas and formulating them as he went along, and that's true art, and that is what Rogan does, is that you know, and he's very good at that because
not like
he's
that
a
bitch
smart guy.
Ayn Rand.
I don't know if any of those people are Ayn Rand fans. Rubin might be.
How would he go from being, you know, young Turk liberal to being Ayn Rand fan? That'd be like the fucking jump of the century.
If you look at Haidt's data, like personality-wise, liberals and libertarians are very close to one another. So people don't like to consider that. Right now, I think libertarians are voting with conservatives because they don't like how SJWs want to use the state to empower minorities.
Well, I can't, at least in my lifetime, libertarians have always voted Republican. I was actually going to make a video about that called Libertarians Are the, I don't remember what it was. Like, it wasn't going to be Libertarians Are the bitches of the right, but it was going to be like, Libertarians Are the suckers of the right, because they always vote Republican just because they want less taxes. But then all the Republicans do is they just put less taxes on, you know, the things that they want.
Yeah.
But then they, you know, it's not like they're putting less taxes for everything. Or less regulations for everything.
There's a really good video on my Think Club channel. That's Jonathan Haidt, The Psychology of Libertarians.
I saw it.
You should check. Oh, you've watched it then. So, yeah, I think he's got the numbers on it, and it rings true with me that really all libertarians care about is freedom, liberty.
Who isn't afraid of the fact that there's a whole bunch of things he doesn't know. And so he can lead people on that journey, and the journey is more important than, to use a terrible cliche, the journey is more important than the destination.
Well, I think, I'm eager to use the tiny time we have to get on to other points, but the one thing I would add, which is a dangerous idea, is that I think there is a concept of good diversity and bad diversity, which is not understood in the general population. Good diversity is when you have a collection of people with different ideas and they're somehow complementing each other and checking each other, and people are backing down and seeing things that they wouldn't have seen because you're walking around the elephant from all the different sides and seeing all the different components. Bad diversity is something like two people grow up in different countries. One drives on the left side of the road, one drives on the right side of the road, and the idea is that you decide that everybody should be able to drive on the same side of the road that they grew up on. And so instead of everybody getting to a really interesting panel, you get a lot of auto accidents and nothing really interesting happens. And so I think it's very important to be honest that there is a lack of diversity about what constitutes a conversation. And I think that that's a very troubling thing because there's no precedent for discussing bad diversity at the moment, which is I would much rather listen to two theologians talking and building up some high structure and two atheist astrophysicists talking about the same thing than having two conversations of an atheist and an astrophysicist where each of them keeps tearing down each other's starting assumptions and you come back 8 hours later and nothing has been achieved.
But does that kind of explain your success in a way? Because probably 4 years ago when conservatives were basically only talking to conservatives, the way the left seems to only be talking to itself these days, you started doing a little of this, and I would venture to guess that you probably, in a way, feel more comfortable with this crew who you disagree with on a gajillion things than probably when you're hanging out with just a bunch of conservatives that you're like, yeah, we all agree on this stuff. And
well, I think I'm certainly more interested. I mean, you know, I think that the idea that the fun conversations are the ones where you're surprised.
Yeah.
And I think we have yet to have a group conversation, or even a conversation one-on-one, because we all talk, you know, one-on-one to each other too, where something surprising doesn't get said. And that makes everything a lot more interesting and fun. And right now, I gotta say, everything is so boring. Like, for all the chaos, everything is so boring because it breaks down into Trump
boring
is an
and
a-hole.
chaotic. What
Exactly. Right. That's what it is.
Jesus, dismal.
I mean, it really is just everybody feels like everything is spun out of
Is
control.
it ironic
but everybody's hunkered
that they're spending all this time talking about how interesting it is to talk about, conflicting ideas with people, and all they're doing is agreeing with each other?
Yeah, it's
about
totally
how
ironic.
awesome they are.
This is why the Jordan Peterson Sam Harris thing has the allure, is because they do disagree so passionately. And yeah, they should have come into this conversation with more disagreement, just to show by example. I mean, it's almost as if they're falling into the social intuitionist model, where they're like, okay, now this is how the tribe forms. We no longer talk about all the things that we disagree about, and we only talk about the things that we do agree about. And pretty soon, we agree about everything.
Right.
That's how tribes form. I think of human beings like I think of cells. Like when the cell divides, the people form their different tribes, and then they go their separate ways, and then those cells fight for which one is going to be dominant.
down in their own bunker. And so everything comes down to Trump is always right or Trump is always wrong, and we're all supposed to revolve around this black hole that is Trump, or the sun that is Trump, and he's the center of gravity. I don't think most people live their lives thinking about these problems.
Well, the whole Trump attack and Trump defense thing is really dull. I mean, when I went on Mar's show, there was the YouTube part afterwards, and the panelists, with the exception of me, were tearing Trump apart. And I was sort of watching that from the outside in some sense, partly because I'm a Canadian, and I thought, well, first of all, it's just not that interesting that you can list Trump's faults. It's like you and my crazy neighbor. It's like, why you're not bringing anything to the table doing that. It's too easy. And then, of course, the other problem is, well, by going after Trump, you're going after his supporters, hypothetically speaking, and of course that's 50% of your population, which turns out to be a very big strategic problem for you, now and in the future. So it is dull. And I don't think people people would rather have a more interesting conversation. That's what we can offer too.
So that's what I wanted to take this. How do we? I mean, we hit on this a little bit in the first 2 hours, but how do we do that now? How do we lay out? I think we're already laying out a more interesting conversation, but how do we also lay out something that doesn't make everyone feel horrible? Because that is a lot of what's going on here. All these people that are showing up to your events, they're going, wow, what a reprieve from the madness. The antidote to chaos.
Well, I mean, I haven't been able to do that politically, I wouldn't say. I mean, what I've been suggesting to people is that as intolerable as they find their lives for reasons that are arbitrary and self-inflicted, there are things that they could do at the individual level that will make a radical improvement. They're difficult things. They're things that require the adoption of responsibility and vision and the willingness to speak your partial and imperfect truth, but if you put that into practice, there is an up. Now, one of the things that needs to be done in the...
Why do you think politics is getting so crazy, Sitch?
I mean, I don't know. Everyone says that. Is it? I mean, or is it just like, everyone thinks everything is crazy when they're living it? I mean,
have you seen any of the
crazy during the Vietnam War protests? Wasn't the country pretty divided then?
I didn't live then. So.
Or the civil rights movement, or?
Yeah, I didn't live then either. So.
Really? I thought you were like 80.
Have you seen any of the ads, the political ads coming up for the midterm elections?
Yeah, no.
Oh, I've been seeing them on YouTube, and man, they're just so incendiary. They reach in just to pound you. And one of the ads that they're running it's anti-Trump, anti-Pence, but it's basically saying that they're just out to get women, and it's very targeted towards, we women have to fight against them. But I mean, I don't know what policies they're talking about, and they're not talking. I mean, maybe they're talking about a specific bill, but if they are, it's not mentioned in the ad. It's just this general Trump and Pence hate women, and we have to stop them.
Right. Well, it's, the Republicans are anti-women, and the Democrats,
exactly.
and they always say, like, it's like how the Republicans are like, oh, the Democrats are anti, white Americans. It's like, is there a specific policy? Like, I don't know. It's just like the feeling that they want to give off.
It seems like everyone wants political power now so badly that they're just willing to sink to all new lows to be able to accomplish it. And I think maybe it's not new. Maybe it's always been that way. Go ahead.
I don't think it's new, but it has been resurging. And I think a lot of that, as I said when we had that stream with was it Academic Agent, I said is part of why I really don't like Trump is that he does the way that he talks that everyone likes because he's trolling the libs. It does create the breakdown in civility, and people are going to copy him, and people are going to respond in kind. And the question is, do you want to live in that world where your politicians are like that? And I say no.
Yeah, they did. There was plenty of beating up on Obama, but I didn't see Obama fight back a lot.
Right, because he was trying to be all above everything.
Yeah.
At least publicly.
Yes.
The political sphere is to delineate what that up might look like politically, to give people something that's positive to strive for it. Well, I mentioned earlier that I see that to some degree in the burgeoning literature that's suggesting that many things around the world are improving very rapidly. And your counterposition was, well, that doesn't mean our situation isn't fragile, which I also agree with. Well, but there is reason, I think there is genuine reason to be optimistic about the future at a sociological and political level. And I think that that's something that we could be having a more serious discussion about. So,
go ahead.
No, I mean,
I think respectful people.
I think that's right. I also think that the reason that you've been so successful is because while you are speaking in kind of terms about society, everyone reads it as self-help. Mm-hmm. Right? Everybody reads it as self-help, and I think that pretty much all of us, what we are saying is being read as self-help, and I think that that's empowering because basically what we're saying to people is, for the most part, it's a free country. Like, shut up and get on with your lives.
Yeah.
Like, just there's a bumper sticker that was going around, like the Shapiro 2020 or Shapiro 2024 bumper stickers with something I said on the show, which was solve your own problems, right? Which is because we're all looking for other people to solve our problems.
Better than that. It isn't solve your own problems. It's three things. Solve your own problems. You can solve your own problems, and you'll find the deepest meaning in your life if you decide that you're going to solve your own problems.
Right, exactly. And
at some level, though, that's complete bullshit. Correct?
Well, I was going to say something else, but what do you mean by that?
The whole solve your own problem thing, because I think Weinstein even brings it up later, and I don't know if it's this interview or the other interview where Jordan Peterson talks about how a lot of the breakdown in the university system is the fact that they're top heavy with administrators, and these administrators are getting paid so much money that the tuition has to be so high that they are so afraid that the students are going to leave the universities because the tuition is so unbelievable that's why they're coddling them. That's why they're not. Right. So, I mean, not only is it creating these societal problems of these people just are completely coddled rich kids. They get out of the university when they should be, they have the kind of debt that they're taking on that they're not really in a position to buy a house or start a family or start a business or take any of the kind of risks that they should be taking when they graduate college. So I mean that's a huge societal problem, but it's difficult for me to, when he says solve your own problems, like, okay, how do you solve that problem?
Right. Well, that's kind of where I see the distinction between Peterson and Shapiro, because Peterson is not a politician, he's not a policy guy. He's thinking about how do I help individual people. And so he's coming from the perspective of, okay, well, the way you help individual people is you tell them, you can fix a lot of the problems in your life. Mm-hmm. And, it's kind of like that's why I liked when Peterson was saying the way that he rephrased what Shapiro was saying. Because Shapiro's kind of has that more, where I find the flaw in the right-wing thinking that's just, just pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and, everything else in life will be fine, which, as you're saying, is, it's completely not true, and that's not how it works at all. I mean, there's lots of systemic problems that you can't just pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and solve. And Peterson always brings it up. He always brings up the inequality of hierarchies. Now you have to constantly be policing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I wonder if universities are going to be, because they're saying, I mean, you've heard people talk about legacy media and stuff like that. I don't know how it's going to go with the media. Jordan Peterson also makes an argument that the media, like the whole clickbait culture in media now, is just because the media is in the death throes. And I wonder how the death throes of the universities play out as well, because the universities, I mean, they're selling status. They really are.
Right.
And there's no reason why everyone, I mean, we have the technology now that Harvard could be giving out probably 10 times the number of degrees that they're giving out. But that changes the market value of the Harvard degree, right? It's just like,
well, that's why they'll never do it.
yeah, but that's a problem, don't you think? When they have the technological ability to do it, like Harvard could just be giving tests, and a lot of the university. I mean, Jordan Peterson has 3 university classes online that people could literally take those classes online, and like he would never have to teach another class again. They could just be tested on that material. And they could dole out the accreditation by whether or not they pass the test. I mean, you'd want some kind of identification, verification process. So obviously, someone wasn't taking the test in your stead. But you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still kind of far away from that. I do think that is a future where you'll have like most colleges or most people will just say, college is too expensive. I'm just going to go to these online colleges, or a lot of colleges will just switch to primarily online courses where they can just teach, way, way more people. But there's always going to be, I don't think the Ivy League schools are going to do that. Society and hierarchies and people, they always want that, the elite group of people. So there's always going to be, some small minority that's, saying that they're better than everyone else.
Isn't it such an irony that all the hardcore leftist egalitarians are the ones that are at these hierarchical organizations?
Right, exactly.
Dominating these hierarchical institutions. It's
definitely.
It's so ironic. I got a couple super chats. Carl's Jr. $5 says, "Bullshit. Obama didn't have to fight back because the corporate media filleted him." Yeah,
which is true. They sure did.
Yeah, I guess you're right. He had other people fighting for him. So, and those are the people that are taking the level of civility down. So, Autocosm for $5.
Well, before we move on, to be fair, and this is part of what I always criticize Obama from, I think he was too naive and too inexperienced when he became president, and he went in there thinking that he was going to be the great unifier, and was just completely unprepared for the Republicans pushing back on every single thing and not working with him on anything. Yeah. And it just really caught him with his pants down.
Yeah, he had an idea that he could change people's minds. Well,
what a fool.
Exactly. Well, it's so hard to change people, and people hate this idea. People have this idea that you just show them evidence and they will change their minds. Like that's what they tell themselves, but it's so far from the truth. On so many empirical measures, they test this stuff, and people do not change their minds based on evidence. They don't. It's too difficult. Autocosm for $5 says the U.S. right were effective convincing libertarians into thinking the only measure of freedom is taxation. Well, I think the libertarians at their heart believe that taxation is everything. I mean, it seems like libertarians bring to the table the taxation is theft argument more than the conservatives do.
Right. And also, because he brought it up again, I kind of misspoke. I didn't mean so much about the taxation. I meant just the idea that since libertarians are just anti more government, so you can have the Republicans can come in and say, oh, we're against more government in people's lives. But then in reality, they're not. They just want to shift the types of government in people's lives. And that's kind of how I view the Republicans use libertarians to their advantage.
At its root, politics is about rewarding your supporters at your detractors' expense, which people don't want to believe that, but welcome to the real world. So when the Democrats are in office, they're about raising taxes and giving programs to their voters. And when the Republicans are in office, they're about giving, cutting programs for the people who didn't vote for them and giving tax cuts to the people who did vote for them.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very simple when you step back and look at it.
It's a nice combination.
And I think that message is true for the vast, like, even when you're talking about societal problems, the very emphasis on reason is a suggestion that you can solve a lot of the problems in your life if you change how you're thinking. I think we are engaged in a collective form of cognitive behavioral therapy. I think that everybody is depressed and we don't know why we're depressed, and we're upset and we don't really know why we're upset. I was saying to my wife the other day, like, if you, a couple of things. So I was saying to my wife the other day, if you were in 1930 and someone just dropped you in 2018, you would think, my God, this is heaven. like my kids aren't dying in youth. My wife isn't going to die in childbirth. I'm not going to really have to experience dire poverty. I can get anything I want from the comfort of my own home. I don't have to go anywhere. Everybody has several cars. I have entertainment that never ends. Right? All of this stuff is just fantastic. And then yesterday I was having lunch with a prominent Hollywood figure whose name I won't mention so he doesn't lose work. And we were doing it at a restaurant in Brentwood. And we were talking about Trump and politics. And I was looking around this room, and everybody's drinking $200 bottles of Chardonnay and their bubbly water, and they've got their kale salad and the whole thing. And it occurred to me that 98% of the people in this room think we are living in danger of incipient fascism. Right? If you would poll the room and say, are we living in crisis mode? 98% of the people in that room go, yes, we're living in a crisis, while they sip their Chardonnay. Yeah. And I thought, well, then either you're not active enough or you're just lying to yourselves, because you don't actually think that we're in crisis. Now, that's not to say that we aren't at crisis point.
Did you see Jordan Peterson on Bill Maher?
Yeah.
They all sounded like they're in crisis mode. Whenever I see the libs on Bill Maher, it's like the sky is falling. The sky is falling.
Well, I think they feel like they can let loose, since Bill is so. I mean, you saw Michael Moore on Bill Maher, right? I
didn't know. Oh my God! I can't imagine.
Oh my God! He was like Trump is going to be the next fascist dictator, Mussolini, and everyone needs to come out and vote against him, and we're going to get like 1 million people and put our arms around the Senate so that senators can't go in to vote for the next, Supreme Court, judge, and all this like crazy shit.
Wow. You don't think that, do you? I mean,
no, I don't. I mean, I don't like Trump at all, but I don't buy this idea that he wants to be president forever. I think he wants to get out of there as fast as possible.
No, the top of the lobster hierarchy is two-term president, and right now Trump is thanking his lucky stars that it's not three-term president, because he doesn't want to be there another term.
Well, if things go south for him and he starts losing popularity, or something bad comes out with the Mueller investigation or something, or just some other random event happens, like the economy goes down, I do think that he will not run again.
No, you're totally wrong.
You think I'm wrong?
Totally wrong. Yeah. Because seriously, all Trump cares about is status. Do you think he wants to be? I guess theoretically he could, because it would be different than like Jimmy Carter ran for a second. Like nobody wants to be a one-term president.
Right, but isn't it better for him to say, I fixed all the problems, I did everything I was going to do, so now I'm going to leave?
Well, he might try something like that. That is
that's what I'm saying. He'd rather do that than lose.
That I can see happening. Yeah, that I could see happening. Yeah, you might have a case to be made there, but he's so close to the top of the lobster hierarchy. I mean, what position is there that's higher status-wise in the entire world than two-term president of the United States of America? Like, that's it, right?
I guess, unless you're like Elon Musk or something.
Elon Musk is below.
He is.
Bill
But he's
Clinton.
Probably like, he'd be whatever the next tier, right?
Yeah, Elon Musk is. Well, I don't even know if Elon Musk is the top of the, because that you start getting into the CEO compensation.
Yeah, but no one else
hierarchy.
is. They're not famous like he is.
Yeah, obviously.
Well, that's part of the hierarchy.
Well, we can argue about the hierarchy. I love arguing about that. Carl's Jr. for $5 says, you can change people's minds with persuasion, thus Trump, master of persuasion. Cialdini couldn't save Clinton. Cialdini is the guy who wrote the book Persuasion. He also wrote a book that I really love called Influence. Everyone should read that book. It's amazing. And he got brought in on the Clinton campaign and started turning the Clinton campaign around a bit, but it was way too late. He's a psychologist, so a lot of the stuff that he was doing is a lot of the liberals think that it's wrong. Like, a lot of liberals think persuasion is, they have this idea that people, they really believe in rational choice theory. So they have this idea that you just explain the choices to people and they make they reason to the proper conclusion, which
Right. And maybe that's how liberals and libertarians are alike. They're both naive in that regard.
No, well, yeah, oh, totally, yeah, and libertarians even more so, really, because libertarians are the most rational. This Heights data points this out, yeah. So, but the flip side of that, though, is a lot of times they feel like the stuff that Trump is doing, the persuasion stuff that Trump is doing, is lying. Like Sam Harris comes out and says what Trump is doing is lying, and Scott Adams will say it's hyperbole, which I'm much more in the camp that it's hyperbole. Like when he comes out and says, "Oh, this was the biggest, best inauguration ever," nobody.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Shit.
It's it's the same. It is lying and it's hyperbole. It's a hyperbolic lie. So,
nah, you're Trump. We're gonna work your Trump derangement syndrome into the open.
Well, first I'll say,
is hyperbole off limits?
I think
use hyperbole all the time in your videos.
I'm not the fucking president.
Okay. Hyperbole in videos is one thing, but the hyperbole is off limits.
Hyperbole for someone trying to make an entertaining video is okay, but if I was president, I would definitely reel it back.
Nah, come on.
Yes, of course. But I'm gonna push back. Well, first of all, I'm gonna say I'm assuming Carl's Jr. is a Sky Adams fan because I've never heard anyone else talk about the Cialdini's effect on Clinton, which it is interesting. But I'm going to push back on that because I remember in one of my videos I researched this. Out of the states that Trump won, that Obama won, the only time Trump got more votes than Mitt Romney did in those states, and out of the 5 or 6 states it was in Florida. All the other states he got less votes, or about the same that Mitt Romney got. And it's just that Hillary got less votes than Obama got.
Oh my God! Hillary.
So it's right. So it's more like Hillary just was shitty at getting, or maybe some of the people in the middle, switched to Trump.
How bad? Okay, you believe in when Jordan Peterson talks about the personality types of liberals and conservatives. You buy into that stuff, right?
Right.
So,
definitely.
So conservatives are more orderly, and liberals are more novelty-seeking behavior, which makes perfect sense why liberals would show up to vote for the first black president, right? That's novelty-seeking behavior right there. What? We get to vote for the first black president. That's like history. It's something.
Well,
cool.
wouldn't it be the same thing for the first female president?
Yes, but I'm getting to that. So,
okay.
Don't you think the media completely screwed over Hillary Clinton by saying that she was going to win in a landslide? Because not only are they high in novelty-seeking behavior, they're low in orderliness. So if they can think, oh, well, if she's going to win by a landslide, then I don't really need to show up and vote, right? Like everyone else is going to take care of that for me. So, okay, I'm fine. I'll stay home. And it totally goes with what you're saying. That,
Right.
Like, she didn't get as many votes as Obama because people were like, she's going to win in a landslide. Let's take it. Let's take it easy, honey. We'll stay home.
I think that maybe that might have been. I think that might have been a small part of it. I think most of it is that she just ran such an awful campaign that she couldn't get the people that were, the idiots that are undecided every election.
I don't know. I do think that the media totally screwed things up with the Hillary's going to win in a landslide argument.
It didn't help. It didn't help.
Yeah. Carl's Jr. for $2 says, "Clown, I'm a libertarian." That clown is aimed at you, clown.
Me?
Yeah. Wait.
Okay.
You were the one saying he's a Scott Adams. Well, I think Scott Adams. I don't know what Scott Adams is. Is Scott Adams a libertarian? Man Faces World for $2 says, "Hyperbole. If you like your doctor, you can keep it." Yeah, that was Obama.
That's not hyperbole. That was a lie. So see, I can be consistent.
No, that was just hyperbole.
No.
Hold on. Nobody said that Obama was using hyperbole. Like,
that's true. There you go. See, there you go.
Trump can take anything back with the hyperbole thing. He's like, we need to kill their families.
Well, it's because the bar for him is so low that it's like it doesn't matter.
Yes. Maybe we should watch some more of this video.
Maybe. Because finally going to get to the parts that get interesting.
Okay, Eric is ready to...
He's ready to pounce. Look at him.
He is. He's like...
He's preparing himself.
It's like, why are they not letting me talk?
There's so many people willing to break the system, but I think that one of the things that's coming true...
Why does Dave think that he's actually part of the dark web? Who is going to tell Dave Rubin that we didn't include him?
Right now,
he can serve us lemonade, when we're all drinking and eating.
First of all, do you think Dave Rubin is a great comedian?
I've never heard him do any of his comedic stuff.
It's not good. It's not good. Jordan Peterson is at the Chappelle level now, man. He needs to he needs to replace Dave Rubin. I think Chappelle would be a good opening act for
but before we start again, because Reid said, is this going to be another 4-hour stream? I found that JF did a 7.5-hour stream.
Oh my God.
Criticizing Jordan Peterson.
Really? Oh my
God.
We got to do it. We got to do it.
No. It'll be a 24-hour stream response.
We'll break it into parts. We should do it. Well, no, you don't care. PSA doesn't want to do the anti-theist stuff, so it's very...
I have no interest in it whatsoever.
Yeah. We'll talk after the thing. This may be 4 hours, but I did have some back and forth with Jake on Twitter, and it seemed like he might actually... Like, he was civil with me, which was interesting. So, I don't know. Did you see any of that stuff?
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay. Man Faces World for $2. Rubin is the designated driver invited to the bar. So true. In the other stream, whenever they mention a book, Rubin's like, "Oh, we got it right here." And I keep thinking, yeah, you haven't cracked it open once. You got to read them, Dave. You got to read them. You don't just put them on the shelf.
Think that the system is irrevocably broken, that they are willing to break the system that is not irrevocably broken.
Well, that was what Marr said, essentially. Bring on the recession. Yeah. Because that'll rid us of Trump. It's like, well, you want the disease so that you can have the cure. It's like, it's just not helpful.
Yeah, boy.
See,
I should sit this one out.
I don't agree with that, with Peterson's interpretation of that, because even though I don't agree with Marr thinking that Trump's going to be a fascist, if you do believe that he is going to be a fascist, it would make sense for you to say that you'd want the economy to crash to prevent that.
That's why Trump derangement syndrome is dangerous, to be honest with you.
Well, that's why all derangement syndrome is dangerous.
Yeah. This is why I know you hate the anti-theist stuff, but I could hear the anti-theists coming in and saying, "Yeah, see, that's why you got to get rid of religion, because religion, it's all good."
I don't hate it. I find it I just find it boring.
No, but this is my counter argument to that, though. Which is more dangerous? People running around thinking Trump is a proto-Hitler, or people deranged about how they're going to live forever in heaven with their family. Like, which is more dangerous?
Well, it's part of the thing with the antithesis. They're kind of operating off of how religious people used to be, because Western culture has kind of liberal Western culture has tamed the beast of religious conservatism, at least for now. They could always swing back. So
yeah, but we haven't tamed the beast of this gender.
That's the new beast.
Religion. Yeah, exactly.
All the beast energy had to go somewhere.
I know.
It just doesn't disappear.
It doesn't disappear. It morphs into some new religion.
This is the fun part.
So I sort of radically disagree. I think that a lot of the people who are at the very top understand why these games are fragile. And so the games are still serviceable, but if you actually understand how the games are played, you understand just how quickly this thing could turn. So I think, first of all, it is precisely the people with enough success. Because
but that shouldn't mean they would be willing to turn it. That's the thing.
Well,
that's where I don't get the distinction.
The number of people with 9 and 10 figures worth of wealth who talk to me about like the rich and the powerful as if they are some different group is very high. And
rich is richer than me. That's what I figured out.
I think there's a difference between people who have their senators on speed dial and people who don't. So, the rich is not a monolith, and that's one of the huge problems in this story. If you're engaged in some kind of business like armament or extraction, where you need to have a very close relationship with government, you see the world very differently than if you're very good at picking investment opportunities.
Now you know how rich he is. He's talking to people that have their senators on speed dial, that are in armament and extraction.
Yeah.
Like that's fucking crazy.
If your wealth is built on what do they call it? Rent-seeking behavior, where you're extracting wealth from other people. You're not actually creating anything. I mean, that's the real problem. I mean, a lot of economists have said we should develop, like, that's what we should be taxing. We shouldn't be taxing workers. We should be taxing the rent seekers, because they're the ones.
Well,
they don't add
Republicans
any value.
would never.
Go
right.
ahead.
Well, they do add value, I guess. Like, because I'm assuming when you're talking about rent sinking, like that would be, like the financial market. Like they're just making money off of moving money around.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. But so, I mean, they are providing a service because they're, I guess, creating more money for some people. But unfortunately, the Republicans would never agree to raise, investment taxes and all this other stuff, because it will supposedly hurt the economy.
Yeah, they want
to at least slow it down.
They want to reward their supporters at the expense of the other guys' supporters. Exactly. I think a lot of the reason why politics is so contentious now is that it's so razor close, that both constituencies are so close in population to one another. Do you know that the House of Representatives was in the Democrats' hands for 40 years?
Yeah, but that was also a lot of that was before the switchover, wasn't it?
It was the New Deal era. That's how they managed to get so much stuff done.
That's why. Yeah, exactly.
The working class would never even consider voting for a Republican. They were like, money bags. Yeah, right.
But then, you had the civil rights stuff happened, and all the racists had to switch sides and become Republican.
The SJWs ruined it.
And now the SJWs are ruining it now, yes.
And you just want to be unfettered in your ability to go make more. I think that one of the things that really resonates about your message, and I feel a little bit less close to Ben on, is that some
conservatard.
Somehow the message that you should improve your own life.
Sorry, we're just reading between the lines for you guys.
Conflated with, if your own life isn't awesome, it's because you've failed to make it so. And I think that was sort of more true in a period of uniform high growth as between 1945 and 1970, when, if you had beta to the system, if you just had exposure, hard work usually paid off. I think that depending on what sector you're in, what your skill set is, where you are in your life, it's very hard for some people to turn things around. And the idea of, look, you may not be able to solve your problem, you solve the problems you confront, but you can solve the portion of the problems that you can solve yourself, and that you should at least do that that is a very different message because it says even if I'm not living in luxury at the end of it, it's not because I failed. And I think that decoupling...
That's a fair distinction, and I would probably, you know, given that criticism, I'd probably...
Take a drink.
Do you think that that Ben Shapiro would ever admit that that was a fair criticism to like anyone else if he wasn't in the environment that he's in?
Well, that guy's worth 10 times more money. Of course, he has to admit that it's a fair criticism.
I mean, that's always why I get kind of...
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right.
Right.
He would shut him down. No, bootstraps. Get your ass out there.
And it's part of what always amazes me, kind of the whole Republican looking back at Reagan so fondly. Because, I mean, at least to me, I don't know, maybe I'm just an unlearned in the liberal bubble. But it seems like he really oversaw the destruction of, you know, the manufacturing base in America and everything being shipped overseas. And he really oversaw, you know, the middle class having to get a college degree to get a good job and all these other problems that we now are saddled with.
Well, even taking it back to the college thing. I mean, raising college tuitions as much as they have in the last 10 years, and at the same time, government willing to step in and give them access to the kinds of credit that these young people just shouldn't have access to. I mean, borrowing the kind of money that they're borrowing to get some gender studies degree is just
right.
Part of this is institutional failure because you want to structure your institutions so that people can take risk, but the institutions at the same time are mitigating that risk. And I don't see that that's taking place. I think our institutions are just a lot of times constructed to you know, take people to the cleaners, which is it's not a sustainable atmosphere.
Definitely.
The housing crisis was the same exact thing. I mean, they gave money to people who shouldn't have access to that kind of money, and that hurt everyone concerned because, like, when you, I mean, you know how supply and demand works. When you invite people into the market they have no idea what the value of something is, and you line their pockets with more money than
right.
Then they're going to drive the price of that kind of stuff up. And I think that's probably what's going on in the I think the college system is the next shoe to drop.
Yeah, maybe. And to annoy all the libertarian viewers in chat, Carl. But to me, the housing crash really is like the thing that shows how the flaw of libertarian thinking in terms of, you know, the hands-off economy.
Yeah.
Because that was totally just the short-sighted greed of banks destroying themselves and everyone else around them.
The libertarians, though, would step in and they would tell you that the banks wouldn't have been able to get away with that if it weren't for the fact that the government was backing up that money. And there is something to be said for that argument. But someone doesn't want me to make that argument.
See? God is like, how dare liberal God is looking down upon you and smiting you.
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
The government distorted the market.
Right, but it's like they distorted the market to help people and to back the banks, you know, because of the other economic crash that almost destroyed everything. And then the banks took advantage of that because that's what people do. They take advantage of things.
Yeah, they do.
Probably agree to the curbing of my own kind of solution, right? Like I think that's right. Clearly, there are people. We are all created equal in our rights, but we're not all created equal in our abilities or in our capacity to rise or fall in a society.
Or in our sectors, or in terms of our...
100%.
And I would do the other half of that thing, which is I would climb down from asking, you know, if more people were willing to admit that, I would say, okay, it's very important that people at least make a co-payment of trying to solve the problems in their own life before demanding that the outside world...
That's the part that I focus on more simply because I think that the government is so big. I mean, this is where politics and philosophy meet, right? So I think the government is so big and so intrusive and so involved in so many areas of our life that...
Look, he's making that argument now.
Yep.
The tendency right now in America is to blame other people for the problems that you have. And that's true on virtually every side of the aisle. I think that when you and I have disagreements about trade theory, but I think when President Trump goes to a Rust Belt town in Ohio and he says, I'm going to bring back all your jobs because the Mexicans and the Chinese screwed you, I think that that's a lie. I don't think he's bringing back those jobs.
Well, you and I aren't disagreeing about that.
Yeah, and so...
Carl's Jr. has a super chat. Why don't you read it?
Carl's Jr. for $5. Trump during the campaign Trump during the campaign... Oh, semicolon. I can't see it. I'm looking at the tiny screen. Let me look at the big screen.
That's okay.
Okay. Oh, wait. There's a bunch of super chats now that I switched it. Did we miss some?
No, these just came in.
Oh, no. I'm looking at the... I don't know. It's all fucked on my screen. Anyway, Trump during the campaign, education institutes should share the risk for paying for degrees. Education institutes should share the risk for paying for... I'm not sure.
Did Trump say that? I'm not sure. Yeah.
How would they? I don't like. How would that work logistically?
There's been talk about forming an institution where the degree is free, but you get a percentage of how much the person earns, which just reeks of indentured servitude.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Can you do Man Faces World?
Man Faces World for $5. When NAFTA passed under Clinton, $1 US bought 4 pesos. Now it buys 20. Manufacturing is heavy labor cost. It moves to lowest cost of production. Right. I understand that, and I don't know. I've gotten to arguments with people about this. I don't know if there was anything that could have been done to prevent America from losing, all the manufacturing jobs that it lost. But there probably could have been a way to slow it down or to at least cushion people that needed it. And Reagan was not the person to do that.
Yeah. Stand on your own 2 feet.
And, that was interesting. That's what was interesting about Trump was that he was kind of pushing this far left idea of setting up all these tariffs on other countries to protect our own businesses.
I know. That's crazy, huh?
And it was weird to see. It was weird to see Republicans kind of ignore that aspect of him.
It's just such a complicated system. You don't know who's going to win. Like I don't think Trump knows who's going to win on tariffs.
Well, it's funny because Scott Adams says like no one knows what the fuck's going on about the tariffs, and I agree with him. It's such a complicated thing. Like who the fuck knows?
How can you even know?
Right.
I think that when my solution to that is there's not necessarily a solution. I think one of the lies is that there's always a solution to every problem that can be had if you just have enough communal power behind it. And I don't think that's right. I think that the solution for most problems in life, not all, because I don't think all problems in life ever get solved, but at least the majority of the major mistakes people make in their life that create obstacles that they can never overcome the rest of their life are self-inflicted. I think that barring serious health problems or mental disability, I think that the number of problems that make it impossible for you to overcome sheer dire poverty in the United States, virtually all of those problems are problems that people put in front of themselves. And so if you can make those basic decisions, then you can turn your life around in a pretty significant way.
Isn't that kind of a ridiculous thing to say, that all the problems, or most of the problems that create poverty are problems people put in front of themselves? I mean, to me, that's absurd. Oh, I think you muted your mic.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a tipping point, I think, that goes on. I mean, part of it is motivation, and people are very, very motivated if they feel there's an environment that they can succeed in. But if they don't feel that the environment is something that they can succeed, and then it goes the other way, they don't try, which is one of the reasons why I really don't like the SJW narrative that, you're oppressed and, white privilege and stuff like that, because the people living on the other side of that narrative are never incentivized to try.
Right, it just saps their motivation.
It totally saps their motivation. So I think if you are in a situation where you don't feel that you can succeed, the rational thing to do is not to try, correct?
Right, yeah, or I forget who it was saying how, it's rational for a lot of kids in these poor neighborhoods to sell drugs, because it, makes more financial sense than for them to try to go to college or anything.
It does, unfortunately. So a lot of society is trying to organize the environment so most people have the opportunity to succeed.
Right, and that's why I don't know, to me, maybe it's because I'm not sure I believe in biological free will, because I'm in like the Sam Harris element of that camp. So to hear Ben Shapiro say like, oh, all these problems are your own doing, it's like so much is thrust upon people that they have no choice on how to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always a big advocate, I'm the big Jordan Peterson fanboy, so I'm always an advocate of trying to improve yourself. But to act like people don't get the shit end of the stick in life is, I don't know, that just seems so in the bubble to me.
Especially when he's sitting right next to Jordan Peterson, who talks about this stuff all the time, about the hierarchy and how people stack up at the bottom.
Right.
People have stacked up at the bottom. See, the thing that I worry about, I mean, you know me, I'm a huge fan of Selectorate Theory and Dictator's Handbook. The thing about the Dictator's Handbook and Selectorate Theory is that our institutional structures are a check on humanity, because Trump can't do whatever Trump wants to do because he has to convince the people that elected him to keep him in power. But
right.
When we get to the point where, where warlords can literally have robot armies, and those robot armies are just going to be an extension of their power. And robot armies is the ultimate expression of it, but there are other expressions of it too, like just having trading abilities over other people in the market could be an advantage that just cleans house. So when we're living in that kind of world where one person has this immense amount of power that's completely unchecked power, I don't know how that plays out. That's a scary scenario that I always think about.
Right.
Carl's Jr. for $5 says, it's not what he said. Education institutions should fund their own tuitions via co-signing the credit. No feminist dance theory. Now, I'm 100% in agreement there. And he's saying that the institutions are putting the responsibility for their payment on the federal taxpayer, which is the problem. It becomes a political thing.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree. If a bank, if a private institution, a bank isn't going to fund that student loan, then those feminist dance theory degrees are going to dry up pretty quick, right?
Right, but it's hard to create a system where you can say like, oh, we're going to fund you to become an engineer, but we're not going to fund you to become a feminist dance theory, because then that's going to become a whole politicized mess,
Well, because Bank of America would be like, oh, it's the shareholders. It's a disaster.
Or even beyond that, just the government would be, because then it's like, oh, who decides what is a shitty course not worthy of federal loans, right? So then whoever's in power...
We just decided, feminist dance theory.
Right, but it's this slippery slope. It's not going to end there, because then it's, whatever party's in power is going to try to screw over, the other party.
I think math. We could do without math. I don't
like
exactly.
Who needs math?
I don't like it.
Who needs evolution?
Or even if they're not problems.
What? Hold on.
Exactly.
How do I kick him off this stream?
See, when the SJWs gain government control, they're gonna put anything about biological gender. No government funding.
Oh my God. Hell.
Problems that people create for themselves. They're problems that they're subject to that are also very intractable to communal level solutions. Like mental illness is a good example of that, and its contribution to homelessness. It's like, well, it's terrible to be mentally ill and to end up on the streets. It definitely is terrible. But
no, pull yourself up. Bootstraps. That's what Ben Shapiro's thinking.
If you're mentally ill, just work through it.
Yeah, work through it. Walk that shit off.
It isn't like we actually know how to solve that. So even if that can't be put at the feet of the individuals who are suffering, it's like, okay, well, we'd like to sort that out communally. It's hard to sort that out without making it worse. We don't know.
Do you guys think we can only make it a little better or a little worse? Like, of course, all hell could break loose on one side of it, but that within the margins, like, it's pretty good, and we can maybe make it a little better, but that the capacity for humans to make a system much better than this, that will allow the most people to flourish.
Much worse. Like, that's what I'm hoping, is that we can aim for incremental improvement. which compounds, by the way. So that's very powerful incremental improvement. But we could aim for incremental improvement while deciding that we're going to stave off chaotic and unnecessary descents into the abyss.
Right.
Which is what I see the danger in this polarization process is generating. It's like a catastrophe that we actually don't need.
What do you make of the amount of people that seem to want that right now? I mean, I always say every week on the show, it's like Twitter is not real life.
Yeah.
But the amount of people that I'm seeing constantly talking about tear it down, and now the new attack on civility, where even if you say be civil, be respectful, that is now thought of as a tool of the patriarchy or a tool of the oppressed or all of that stuff. What do you make of that assault?
I mean, I think, first of all, the fundamental hatred of the system.
How stupid are the SJWs? Because they could have really taken that civility thing and thrown it right back in Trump's face. But then instead they decided to go like the worst route possible with it.
And just be completely uncivil?
And say that civility is part of, white privilege. It's like the worst thing they could have possibly done.
It's so bad.
A lot of people is... I'm not going to justify it given the fact that the system that we have is the best that has ever, happened to any human beings in the history of the world. I mean, this is a pretty great place to live.
Compared to all other...
If you're at the top of the hierarchy, it's a great place to live.
Right, and compared to, the rest of the world, which sucks.
Yeah.
Everything
Well,
that's not America.
Even if
sucks.
you're at the bottom of the hierarchy in America, it's better than being at the bottom of the hierarchy in, like, Sierra Leone or something like that.
Yeah.
Because then you're dead immediately.
Right. I'm not saying compared
Puerto
to
Rico. Then you don't have power.
Yeah, I don't. I haven't been to Puerto Rico.
utopia compared to heaven. I'm not saying it can't get any better. I think that one of the...
Since I'm pausing it, Carl's Jr. for $2 says, math solves it. Who can pay back the loan? Yeah, the math.
Is he saying that the feminist dance theorist can't pay back the loan? How dare he?
They could move to Portland, Oregon and open a feminist dance theory cafe.
Exactly.
They'd be raking it in.
The great dangers always is utopianism, and I think you're seeing it from both sides. I mean, right now, when you saw Alexandra Ocasio-Sanchez win in New York, and she's promising universal health care, universal college tuition, universal housing, right? All of this stuff is going to magically happen. And then she's asked on MSNBC, are you going to pay for any of this? And she just basically says, well, just how FDR did. FDR didn't. Okay, that was one of the big problems.
Yeah.
And also there was a giant world war happening at the time. So it's the itch to
and
come to a
something
solution.
has to grow to provide that. That's the thing. It's
This
like
is-
that's you really want to make a state that has enough power to grant all those wishes. It's like careful what kind of genie you generate, because it's going to have a demand on you. So
I don't think the market is that free markets are inherently utopia. And I don't think that a vast government is inherently utopia, but I think free markets at least have a certain respect for human labor, dignity, and individuality, and collectivist utopias certainly do not.
and they also have a certain distributed quality. It's not like there's a central administration making the decisions. So even if the decisions are bad, which sometimes they are, they tend to be self-correcting, and mostly they operate locally. So there's something to be said for that.
So what do you say to all the people that are going to listen to this, that I think you're a little more sympathetic to than the rest of us, that are going, but we need help, or this sounds cold, or
I mean, that's kind of the problem
I have to say,
with Shapiro and Peterson, is that they're comparing it to like communism.
Yeah,
It's
they
like,
are,
there's a middle ground in there somewhere.
Yeah, they're paying it. They're like, it's between bread lines or what we have. It's like, maybe we could just raise taxes a little bit on the really, really rich people. Just a
little bit.
Just a teeny little bit.
Maybe we can bring back the estate tax
Oh
on people that make over
the
$1
death
million
tax.
dollars.
The death tax. Explain the death tax to people.
Well, is it 5 million now? Because it used to be 1.5 million, right?
Yeah, but who are they taxing? Like, it's ridiculous that they call it the death tax, because they're not taxing the dead guy.
I don't know. It's a whole thing. I don't know if you really want to get into it.
It's an income tax.
Right.
You're taxing the person.
It's just an income tax.
Yeah, you're taxing the person that's inheriting the money. You want to read the Alik on Dusko? Alik on Dusko, $5.
Hi guys, public service announcement. Situation is responsible for me being here. Is that me?
Yeah, you.
I'm the situation. Okay.
You're the
Dr. Peter-
situation.
It's true. I'm Sitch for situation.
Next time we do
is
this, I'm
responsible.
going to have the situation as your avatar
You should. That makes a lot of sense.
from Jersey Shore.
Oh no, don't do
It'll
that.
be great.
That's a terrible idea. Dr. Peterson is a treasure who isn't treasured. PSA: Waluigi memes, please. Okay, I'll work to put a Waluigi meme in the next video.
What is that?
Just for you. Waluigi. It's the evil Luigi character.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You're good with
You're,
memes.
you're an old man. You don't know these things.
Yeah. Adam, are you a lizard or a robot? Caffeinated Fiend for $2 says, Adam, are you a lizard or a robot? Robot, right? Yeah. Totally. Oh, did you?
How would you be a lizard?
Last night I saw a part of Atomisk on Foodie Cootie.
Are you talking about the new one?
Yeah.
I still haven't seen any of it yet.
Oh, Atomisk showed up. Not living yet, just a husk.
Uh-huh.
Is going to be
Not to catch
colder
up.
than this. You guys are like warming my heart with your stories about individuals pulling themselves up with their bootstraps. I mean,
He's like, I work for a bunch of guys that kick those people down with their bootstraps.
there was a phase change in the economy around 1970 that I cannot get people to focus on. And if you look at like GDP, which is a very flawed measure, and median male income, which Tyler Cohen, I think, was the one who pointed out that this is the best version of the argument. One of these things, they're both going up together until like.
Notice he said the 70s. What president is he talking about, Sitch?
Exactly. See, I know what's going on.
1970.
Yeah.
And then one of them flatlines and then it keeps going. And the idea that this is not a structural change that is in every school textbook and that we don't understand that we've built up 2+ generations of experts lying about what happened. And
Well, what do you think happened? Why did that? Because I've read criticisms of the decoupling theory. saying
Nobody
that-
likes my version of it, but
Well,
I'll give it to you.
I'd like to know
Sure.
because I don't understand it.
Everyone who cares about this stuff should read a guy named Derek DeSola Price, who was active in the late 50s and started talking about there will be a singularity in science. So he looked at
Price's law.
number of PhDs, number of journals, amount of funding. Everything was going up exponentially, and things that go up exponentially cannot continue. And so he predicted this is going to end because there will
that's
be
what
too many
I said at VidCon, and you disagreed with me.
But we were talking about, I was saying that information is the one exception.
I wasn't disagreeing with that. It was about the economy.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he's talking about actual commodities. He's talking about number of
Right.
PhDs.
Well, that's what I was
I'm
talking
talking
about.
about what the economy is based on. We live in an information
Okay.
economy.
Okay.
So information is infinite.
You can weasel out of it. It's
What are
okay.
you talking about? It's not my fault you were drunk and you weren't paying attention.
too many PhDs per child. And sure enough, that system sort of came apart. So if you look at the period from between 1945 to 1970, you have this growth regime. And everything that got built during that time has what I call an ego, an embedded growth obligation. If it doesn't grow at this rate, it's going to turn pathological. And so we built a ton of infrastructure around this beautiful period of high, broadly distributed, fairly even and stable technologically led growth. And that ended. And then began this crazy period of excuse making where we found every gimmick known to man. And if you want to read an article about this, I think I wrote one called Anthropic Capitalism and the New Gimmick Economy. And so part of the problem is that the concept of jobs as how we feed ourselves rather than creative enterprises or something else, jobs are probably tied to a period of time that isn't going to go on forever, and it's probably weakening as a means of feeding us. So the market was unbelievably brilliant, and then there was a structural change, and now the question is, how do we account for these egos that make embedded growth obligations, that make liars of all of the experts who service the institutions? So the big problem that we're having, the reason we can't wake up from this madness, is that you've had since about 1970 people having to lie to keep the institutions afloat. So
What's the lie?
Well, take a law firm. The idea is you have some number of partners. The partners have associates. All the associates want to become partners. So you have to tell them a story about if you work hard, you will become partners. But when you hit steady state, like the professor wants to have 20 students, the 20 students want to become professors to have 20 students. None of this stuff works anymore.
But the income
it's a
ability
hidden,
levels...
your thing, it's a hidden, what do you call that game?
It's a hidden pyramid scheme.
It's a
Ponzi scheme.
hidden pyramid.
Oh my God, Jordan Peterson doesn't even know about the Ponzi scheme.
Well, he
not
knows,
looking
but-
good. He didn't even know what it was called. Oh my goodness.
Well, he understands the symbolic nature of it, okay? The deep embedded archetype of the story of the Ponzi scheme.
Look at Dave Rubin over there pretending he knows what he's talking about. Pretending
Well,
he
see-
knows what Eric Weinstein's talking about. He's like,
I mean, Eric's like way out there far left. He's talking about how jobs
know.
aren't going to be, useful for being paid for people to exist in society in the future.
it's pretty crazy. That's why I sent you this clip. I was like, oh, Lefty will love this. Eric's going nuts. But you see why he's at the bottom of the intellectual dark web hierarchy. Like, he's literally the richest one in that room right now. But
Well, he's not. I think it has to do with the fact that he is only famous because of his brother.
yes,
In terms of this sphere, nothing. He doesn't stand out because nothing happened to him to propel him to fame.
yeah, exactly. Well, and nothing would, because he's just
Right.
he's got the resources.
Pyramid scheme.
But the income ability levels since 1980 have been relatively stable in the United States.
Well, we've been a very rich family trying to figure out ways to live out our days in the
But
style
see,
to which
it's
we've become
annoying because
accustomed.
Ben Shapiro, he ignores what he just said about how
Totally.
GDP has gone up, but median income hasn't gone up. Or whenever you look at those charts about how CEO money has gone out some exponential amount compared to the average worker than when it used to be.
Thousands of times.
Right, and it's supposed to be it is so bullshit because when you look at the conservative notion of the great times for America, it was the post FDR middle class that those economic policies created in the 50s.
The Haidt is using a new metaphor, which I like. He calls it the dynamism versus decency. And he says that in the United States, we've thrown our lot in with dynamism and just thrown decency to the curb, which makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, in Europe, I think they have a law that a CEO can't make 25 times more, can only make 25 times more what his lowest employee makes. So they incentivize bringing that lowest employee up.
That's interesting because there's some law like that. There's some cap in America, or there was. I don't know. Maybe they got rid of it. And all that happened is they just switched to giving the CEO stock options to get around that.
Oh, yeah.
And that probably made things worse.
We're dealing with tons of corruption here, but
Right.
yeah, and it's so bizarre too, because so much of it is the like they have more money than they could ever use, but it's a status thing. They want to be able to say, "Oh, I have more zeros in the bank account than this other guy." Like they just
Right.
want to go to sleep at night knowing that they're more important than them because of that discrepancy.
Right, and what else are they going to do? It's kind of like when they're playing the game, and the game is to score points.
Yeah.
And the points is the bank account. So
Yeah. Nobody first of all, Dave doesn't even really understand what they're talking about.
how
Still
dare
really-
you? He could be a very smart person. We just don't know because he doesn't talk.
But when he does talk, you can tell he's not very smart. Let's be honest.
We found every kind of gimmick known to man, whether it's offshoring or mergers and acquisitions or self-regulation of markets. All of these things that we learned how to do.
Is the big
in
problem
experiment-
just the transfer over to the service economy as opposed to in the intellectual economy as opposed to manufacturing?
Well, the thing is that a lot of this was led by something like science in the form of, let's say, just semiconductors coming out of physics.
I wonder if a
how
lot
much
of it, too,
of-
no one
of-
wants to
of our-
say it, is when women entered the workforce, you essentially doubled the workforce. So that's definitely going to hurt, wages.
Yeah, and women aren't as good at negotiators, so they totally drive wages down.
Right.
Which
It's women's fault for everything.
no one wants to just say it.
Our current growth has been scientifically led. And now, with Moore's law, the reason everybody talks about it is it's one of these growth laws that can't go on forever. So,
although it's been doing pretty well. I mean, part of it.
And Jordan's like, it's doing fine. Have you seen my Patreon? Jesus Christ. I finally made it. Now you want to bring all this garbage up.
Yeah, communist.
Yeah.
No, things that are impossible can't continue forever. That's the rule.
Well,
right? And the doubling seems to be one of those
And the
things.
idea is that we've been pretty good staving off disaster for a very long time.
But it seems to me, though, that there is,
We got plenty of time.
this is perhaps part of the contradiction that people are wrestling with. Is and you're pointing to structural deception, let's say, something like that, and the delusions that go along with it. But it also does seem to me, and this is where the measurement issues become so complicated, is that even though wages among men have been flat since the 1970s, I think you could make a pretty cogent case that we are actually, in many ways, much richer than we were. First of all, the world's much richer.
We are, Jordan. Not we. Not we, buddy. You.
There's much less poverty worldwide, and in an absolute sense as well. And so even if the average American isn't richer, let's say, although we could dispute that.
I just want to let everyone know for the record that I don't begrudge Jordan Peterson any of the money that he's making. And I think that he will put it to good use. I know, I've read that he's working on figuring out the university dilemma. And if someone can put together an online university system, I think Jordan Peterson has the clout and hopefully has the financial ability to do it. Like, I'm glad that Jordan Peterson is in that room sitting next to a venture capitalist.
Do you know he's just going to spend all that money on paintings of people being massacred from communist era?
It's all going to be Russian art. Well, it could go either way, guys. Just no way. Jordan's going to do the right thing. Come on, St. Jordan.
The world that surrounds him is much richer, and that actually constitutes a form of accrued wealth. Because you're actually safer when a quarter of the Chinese aren't starving and a quarter of the Indians aren't starving.
This.
Okay, but then I would also say, although there's been
he was just talking about globalization there, right?
Right, but it's weird to this is why I want people to actually have actual discussions and critiques of Jordan Peterson, because right now I don't understand why he's carrying water for kind of the corrupt hierarchies in America right now. Well, it's he only sees it as that game between communism and capitalism.
Well, we got Nellie Bowles. She's ready to throw it.
No, she's not ready to do anything.
She's ready
of the
to have
sort.
a very reasoned discussion about this stuff.
Okay. Jordan Peterson, what is it? He's gonna. What did she call him?
Look at that scowl.
My God.
Nellie Bowles is a tech reporter. They couldn't even get their sound synced in this video. It's a competence hierarchy.
Well, maybe that's what you know how they say those who can't teach. Well, maybe it'll be those who can't teach, and those who can't teach report.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That'll be the next one.
I have this theory that about half of the people working at the New York Times are gender studies majors.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Local stagnation in the West, arguably. There's been massive global improvements. But then the other question is the idea of local stagnation actually accurate? Because there are lots of ways that we are clearly way richer than we were. Now, we're certainly richer in terms of our access to high quality information at a very, very low cost. And so the technological revolution seems to be real.
Having the information, though, is useless without the degree. It's the degree that's the bottleneck.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Which is what I was saying. You can have access to all that information. That's fine. But if you're a truck driver and without your Harvard degree, it's good luck when you apply for that CEO position.
Right. And also, I don't think what he's addressing is that when you look at the price comparison stuff, it's a lot of luxury goods has gone down some insane amount in terms of cost over the years. But then it's all the important things that aren't luxury goods have increased.
Yeah, gone
food
up.
Has gone up.
Rent.
Substantially. Yeah, food, property, rent, education.
Utilities, water.
Exactly. Medicine. All the stuff you need has gone up by some insane amount. So it's like, yeah, we can all buy our shitty iPads for cheap, but all the other stuff's expensive.
Yeah. Pseudo analyst for $5 says government regulation has gone up exponentially since the 1950s, so CEOs make more money is not surprising. Deregulation will decrease medium CEO income.
I mean, I don't see how.
Yeah, tell us
you
how.
can make such a broad statement like that.
Yeah, how will deregulation? Orbiting ESO for $5 says nice stream, man. What's up, ESO? Good to see you. Yeah, I don't like how will deregulation lower the amount of money that they can make?
I don't know.
I mean, power is how they make that money.
And it's when it's it's whatever the that term is for how when you have more money, it's always easier to make more money.
The CEO situation is completely corrupt because they have a board of directors that's like 15 to 20 people. The CEO picks that board of directors, and that board of directors picks the CEO compensation. It's like
right, and then all the people on the board, they get paid some astronomical fee to have a meeting like every 2 months.
Every 2 months, like every year. It's like
every quarter, maybe. If you're lucky.
It's crazy.
So, it's a racket to a large
It's a total racket, yeah, to sustain their huge incomes for no value. Well, no, I mean, obviously, there are CEOs that provide value, and there aren't CEOs that provide value.
Right.
And we can purchase a lot more of this high quality technology for less money than we could. So I'm not entirely convinced of the wage stagnation argument.
There's a tremendous amount to be done about the metrics about how we measure these things. There's also a total flaw that is suffused throughout economics. I just came back from 4 days in Venice, and the first day in Venice, I thought this place is unreal. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Every 52 years didn't prepare me for this.
Right.
4 days later, I was like, wow, there's so many tourists, and okay, you go over this bridge to get that. It took almost no time to remove that level of magic because I got used to it that quickly. Right?
Yeah. Well, that's a problem. We get used to things that are going well extraordinarily
hedonic
quickly.
Numbing is a real issue.
Oh,
and the other thing is that what were the Gini coefficients measuring the inequality during the period that was going up? We're now in a period of such inequality that humans are very focused on things like status.
Yes.
And so it's not clear to me that people wouldn't be actually happier in a totally different regime. I mean, we have enough plastic stuff from China. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, in all of that,
so that's an interesting issue, because one of the things we could say, perhaps, is that between 1945 and 1972, what was provided for people wasn't so much a standard of living that's higher than we have now, but a trajectory of development that appeared more stable and believable.
And low variance.
Yeah, right. Yes. Well, and then the question is, well, what actually do you want? Do you want a high standard of living, or do you want to believe that if you put in incremental effort, your life can improve? And it could easily be that people will rather have
the ability to make a 30-year plan.
We want the ability.
Yeah. Yes. If what I value is the ability to make a 30-year plan, and I want to have some idea of how I'm going to get to my retirement and put kids through school and do all of this, and I want
and then it's this plan.
Yeah.
Right.
So the idea
the predictability is gone, no question. And there's too much volatility.
Right.
That's why I said.
What's your take on? What's your take on the predictability?
Well, I mean, I think, Peterson totally nailed it, and so did Eric, about the loss of that and the loss of the American dream. And I guess the question is why is there, why has it happened? Why is the American dream dead? Why is the predictability gone? Because, I would point the finger and say it's all Reagan's fault, but I'm a dirty liberal, so.
Yeah. It's not that's the dominance hierarchy. Just use your brain. Use your brain, Jordan. It's the dominance hierarchy. People are stacking up at the bottom. It's a tough problem. He says it's a tough problem all the time, but how do we solve that problem?
Right.
It's a tough problem. Maybe just raise taxes just a tiny little bit. Just a little tiny bit. Alec on Dusko for $10 says, every time people come up with a trick to exploit the stock market, the regulation to fix it produces a new, worse trick. Deregulation de-incentivizes sneaky tricks so CEOs won't be able to exploit. So both of them are very much in favor of deregulation, which I am. I mean, it depends upon what we're talking about here. I mean, it's very easy to point out stuff where regulation is bad, but I mean, regulation comes in. I mean, you're right in saying that there's a kind of cat and mouse game going on with regulation where, you know, they put one regulation in place and people find a way around it. So, I mean, and this is how the regulations continue to stack up on the board over and over again, because, you know, they find a way around it, but they don't repeal the actual regulation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with what he said, is that, you know, usually unfortunately, I don't know if usually, but unfortunately often the regulation creates some unforeseen event that makes it worse. But I don't think you can give up. And I don't think that deregulation would fix any of the problems.
I want to see the evidence. I mean,
right.
Where is the evidence that, is it good to live? I mean, this is how these tin pot democracies function, or tin pot dictatorships function, where everyone who is in the winning coalition, the winning political party, they're all filthy rich, and they make that money by subjugating everyone else around them.
Right.
And
or just go back to what I said earlier about the housing, crash. I mean, isn't that proof that the deregulating and not controlling a market to any degree, just people will make the stupid, short-sighted, financial decisions and bring ruin to themselves?
Yeah, if there weren't regulations in football, they would be killing each other. I mean, there's regulations are just rules, like rules for the game. I don't understand how you can even have a game if you have no rules.
Well, I think the liberals have done a poor job framing regulations. The frame that I think they should take is that we're just trying to create as much competition and economic incentives for people to create business as possible, because that's what you want regulations to do. But they never frame it that way.
Libertarians hate all rules, though. That's part of their psychology. Libertarians suffer from an excess of what psychologists call reactance theory. And reactance theory, or it's called psychological reactance, but it's the feeling that you get when somebody tells you that you can't do something and you want to do it even more. So
right.
Regulation, I understand where libertarians are coming from, because whenever anyone talks about regulation, they think, it's like their heads explode. So, but it depends upon it really depends upon what the regulation is. I don't know that libertarians will buy into any regulation, though. But I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
Murder laws are regulation.
Well, it's kind of like the whole, food, like with restaurants, like, there has to be regulation to make sure that the food doesn't suck. Because the idea that, they're going to make sure the food's all healthy because then they're going to lose customers. It's like, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't buy it.
Did you see the clip of Joe Rogan going off on Rubin? Well,
yeah,
when he was talking about, we don't need any of these regulations. We can just do without. And he was like, "Are you kidding me? These contractors would come in and they'd use toothpaste and bubble gum if they could get away with it."
Exactly.
They would. I
mean, I guess that's always how I see it, is that I'm far too cynical to be libertarian.
Yeah, me too. I don't trust anyone. Are you kidding me? The building inspectors that come in and regulate those guys, they have the homeowner's interest in heart, because they know a lot of homeowners, they don't know anything about that stuff. They'll take advantage of them. They're in a situation with superior knowledge. So
right, and that's why it's important to have some things, not everything, but to have some things be operated under government control as opposed to private control, because private control's motivation is to make money. Where if you have some government organization, I mean, I'm sure there's corruption, obviously, but at least they're supposed to have, not be motivated by profit. They're supposed to be motivated, like you said, by the person's interest that they're helping.
They're going at us now. Alik Ondusko says, small selectorate democracies, which the fact that he knows selector theory warms my heart. Regulate the other like mad. Prove me wrong. Regulation is a stick without an adequate carrot. Where's the carrot? As far as carrots and sticks go, the stick always gets you halfway, and the carrot gets you the rest of the way. If all you have is carrots, you got nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think
nothing.
I think Alec is right in terms of if there are regulations passed, they do need to have a positive and a negative. They need to be, at least the way that I look at it, is that government regulations in terms of economics should be trying to funnel things in a direction that benefits society as a whole. And there needs to be a stick and a carrot for that.
Right. But I'm a firm believer in lots of stick. And pseudo analysis for $5 says housing crash happened because Clinton forced banks to give mortgages to poor people and minorities without discrimination.
I mean, it's completely not true. That was the Republican line, but that's not true at all.
But they did give loans to people that they shouldn't have given loans to, and those people were poor people and minorities.
Right, but that was the bank's own. When the banks realized in the 80s, I think it was, or it might have been the late 70s, when they could, have the mortgage-backed securities and they could bundle everything, and once they started getting all these mortgage-backed securities and all this other shit that'd always be ranked, highly as AAA or whatever, they realized that they could just keep getting mortgages from poor people that didn't pay up because they didn't care, because then they would turn around and sell that mortgage to someone else.
Right.
So that's not the government forcing the banks to do it. That's the banks saying this is in our economic interest to do that.
Correct. And the government just being, here, take all the money.
Exactly. Again, the government just kind of watching it happen.
Yeah.
I mean, there was, because, people complain about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which there's some truth to that, but they only had I think it was 12% of the market share for the subprime mortgages anyway, and they got into it very late. So I don't think you can throw the blame at their feet on that one.
Sitch is a detective. He'll get to the bottom of this.
Jobs are not going to be the means of redistribution of the wealth.
Right. I do.
That is very important. Jobs are not going to be the redistribution mechanism. And if jobs aren't going to be the redistribution mechanism, what is it going to be?
Well, I mean, I guess that brings up, in the future when everything's automated, what's going to happen?
Just a little tiny bit. Just, can we have some crumbs, please?
You're going to have the UBI stuff coming
No
out.
regulation, no job, no housing. Yep. What will people have to offer the super wealthy anyway? I mean, why do you want, even in a service economy, once they figure out how to make robots look like, Megan Fox, what do they want you waiting on them for?
That's a good point. There's going to be no jobs for non-intellectual positions. And then when they have general AI, then there will be no jobs for anything. Yeah.
There is a glimmer of hope there, because the next swath of jobs to go from artificial intelligence are going to be like attorney. And that's a huge white collar job.
Yeah, but that's probably going to be 40 years after all the service jobs are gone. So it's still going to be that time of instability.
Attorney is going to be in 10 years, man.
No, that's crazy.
Why?
Driving is going to be in 10 years.
Do you know what attorneys do, though?
Yeah.
They're decision makers.
I know what attorneys do.
Stock traders are gone already. Correct? That's all done by machines.
No, that's not true. There's a lot of microtransactions that are done by machines.
Right.
But long-term projections, I don't think that's done by machines.
Research analyst is going to be gone. Attorney's going to be gone. 3 years.
Well, I think that
no way.
You're right. There's an enormous amount of chaos and volatility in the system, but I think that the only thing that you can say to that is the same thing that's been true for most of human history. Okay, the time when people could actually stably predict that in 30 years I will be significantly better off than I am now, and I can make a retirement plan. That's about 50 years of human history. Right? I mean, before that, it was basically you have 2 kids, one of them dies, and then your wife dies in childbirth.
He's comparing it to like the shittiest thing that it's ever been.
I know. That's what I don't understand. He's like saying, well, we really only had this good life for like 50 years. So if we go back to the life that we had before that, you know, who cares? Like, it's just, it was a fluke.
Exactly. What we need is another 4-term ultra-liberal Democratic president to raise taxes to 90%, apparently.
Oh, my God.
And a world war to fund everything.
This chat is going south on us. They're fully they're in full attack mode.
But see, it's good because then they'll pay to yell at us.
Alec Undusco. I hope I'm getting your name right. Alec Undusco for $5. Libertarians don't trust anyone. You're trusting the officials there, not no one. But we aren't really trusting the officials. Like, I have no faith that libertarian or that Democrats or Republicans are going to implement these policies. I have no faith that they have any desire to implement these policies. Do you, Sitch? I mean,
no. Well, the way I look at it, see, this is my problem with kind of the libertarian idea, is that they think that the world is divided into 2. It's between the individual power and individual rights and government power and government rights. But in reality, it's really 3 things. It's government power and government rights, the wealthy and the corporate power and corporate rights, and then there's the individual. Right. And when you sap power from the government, it just goes to the rich and the corporations. It's not going to the individual.
Yes, exactly.
And so,
well, the whole idea of the democratic government was to pool the power of the individual to be able to fight against the elite power.
Exactly.
To balance.
And so, yeah. And so when I say that I'm too cynical to be libertarian, it's, at least from my perspective, is that I look at libertarians as kind of assuming that everyone's going to kind of function in a libertarian society by, I guess, following the rules and having these high-minded ideals and all this other things that it doesn't seem feasible to me. All I see is BioShock. You know, that's the outcome, is rapture at the bottom of the sea and everything going to hell because you have people who are shitty who are going to take advantage of any situation. And I don't think that libertarian philosophy and libertarian government adequately deals with bad actors.
Yeah, they have no constraint over bad actors. The only constraint that we have is the sticks. More sticks. If heads don't roll, people will do whatever they want to do.
Right. And even though the government is like corrupt and sucks in a lot of ways, at least in theory, they're supposed to help you. Where corporations aren't supposed to help you in theory, they're just supposed to make money. So that's why I side more with the government, just because at least there's a glimmer of hope there.
Costly externalities is something that corporations don't really adequately, or most libertarians don't adequately take into consideration when they're talking about deregulation. Man Faces World for $5 says, it is both. Dems did tell banks, if you don't lend to X group, you're racist and we'll be fine. Then banks said, maybe we can make money with this. So,
I mean, there was some of that going on. I don't know the numbers on how much of that contributed to the subprime market crash and all that other stuff.
Definitely. Alik Undusco for $10 says, I'm a machinist. We're not quite ready to completely automate yet. I make parts for machines that are for etching silicone into microchips. I have to hit the grinding tools with a hammer to spin right.
See, I told you it's gonna be longer than everyone thinks.
I have yet to be wrong yet, but this would be the first time. So.
Well, I mean, look, I don't know. Whenever you look at movies of the future, it's always like, Back to the Future. You had all the flying cars, and it was like the 90s or something, or the early 2000s. Like, everyone always thinks things are going to happen faster than they do.
The robotics end is what is going to take the longest period of time. But the reason why I was making the argument for attorneys is that attorneys are reading documents and making calculations, which could be done without any kind of robotic body. Like when you deal with an attorney, you're asking them, what do you think they're going to do? Do you think they're going to sue? Like, what do you think their weak points
are? Yeah, but there's a problem with that, which is, I forget who was talking about it. They were saying when they try to create general AI and these kinds of intelligence, they didn't realize that having a body and senses is like so important to figuring out how to be intelligent in the world. So I don't know if we don't have the technology yet, I think, to create the faceless AI that can do that. Because most of the AI that we have right now, the only way it works is that you just have you have like a bunch of AI consistently fail to do something. If it consistently fails to match two things, and then eventually when it matches the right thing, then it like learns and it disregards all the previous AI that failed. And I don't know how effective that's going to be at lawyering. In the lawyering realm, though, if you're looking at like a case, a lawsuit against another party, the AI could theoretically read every single case on that whatever kind of situation you're in and have all that information at its disposal. Yeah, but it can't. It can read it. How is it? But it can't being able to extrapolate information from the words. Yeah, it can. You haven't seen Watson? But that's so easy because you have a bunch of pieces that have. Yeah, but it would look at all the cases and it would find patterns that we aren't even capable of finding. How is being able to, wear a swimsuit out by the swimming pool going to help in that domain? No, but what I'm like, when you look at the chess thing, it's like, okay, so each piece has a rule that you can very easily program into. We're beyond chess, though. You have to watch the AI that went up against the Jeopardy champion. Like they're asking him word questions and he's answering. Yeah, but even that is like, that's just, you have, the computer has an encyclopedia and you ask it a question and they program it to hear the question in a specific way. No, the AI goes to the internet and reads all of the internet and you ask it questions and it gives you answers. And that's right. But what I'm saying is when you're talking about the lawyer stuff, it's like you have to. It's not like like you can just punch into the internet and find the information you need. You have to you have to conceptually connect ideas that are not already on the page for you. You have to do it in your mind, and that's where I'm saying we're not there yet with the computers being able to make those connections. We're there. Okay. We're there. Okay. They do it completely differently. Well, Alec agrees with me, even though he didn't specifically say that. You're talking. They do it differently than we do it, but there's a case to be made that we're doing it the same way that they're doing it. They look for words. They look for words close to matching other words. They look for patterns that we don't necessarily see. Right, but that's not what you do. That's not what lawyers do. Yes, they do. They're not looking for words that are similar. You have to look for concepts that are similar. Concepts are words. Let's move on to the next super chat. You read the next super chat. Concepts are the etherical substrate beyond archetypical. Okay. Anyway. We're going to get to 4 hours, aren't we? Yeah, we are. Logical Vegan Lifts for $5 says, Eric comes across as a cry bully when he complains about libtard, yet interrupts Jordan. You guys could become a better Andy/JF. All right. I'm going to tweet JF right now. I got it. So does that mean that, are you the JF in this situation? Well, I will tell you, you do not know what you're talking about. The attorneys are going to be out of work. 2 weeks. I don't know. We'll have to ask him. Next is. You want me to read the next one? Yeah, go ahead. Pseudo analyst for $5 says the only reason why the banks did that because the government insured $200,000 in case of a bank run. Bankers wouldn't have spent it if that policy didn't exist. Which is, I mean, that's someone else had said that, or maybe it was pseudo analyst said that in a different way earlier. So are you saying that that's a bad regulation? Exactly. That's my problem. Is that's a good regulation that was meant to do something else, and then as someone else said, whenever you create regulations, it's like the cat and mouse arms race. Yeah. Or they kind of people will try to screw them over, for that. And and I don't think getting rid of the regulation that's supposed to protect citizens and ensure that they have faith in the banks in the first place, I don't think getting rid of that's a good idea. I think you can just say there needs to be more regulations on the rating agencies or mortgage-backed securities, or so there's some other way to do it without getting rid of FDIC insurance.
And there's, I mean, you've got to be able to tinker, because the system is so complicated that you don't necessarily know what is going to happen. The law of unintended consequences. I mean, the best thing that you can do is just make small incremental changes.
Right. Until
then
the general AI becomes of the politicians and they foresee every possible future.
Is that going to happen? Hopefully.
That's going to happen.
Jeez, I lost. There was another one. Oh, Alico on Dusko
there's
for
another
$2.
one before that.
Oh, shit.
Space Paradox.
Space Paradox.
Space Paradox for £2, right? That's the pound sign.
I don't know.
Some things are not operable by private entities. Yes, that's very, very true.
Which is government?
Well, just, things that not everything should be, profit driven.
Yeah, yeah. Churches.
The churches are profit driven. What are you talking about?
I thought they were nonprofits. Elite on Dusko for $2 says, I don't think, we'll get control, us libertarians.
I think you're right.
Yeah. There's by the numbers, I think they're only 10 to 12% of the population. So
isn't that another problem with the libertarian philosophy, is that it only works if everyone's libertarian?
Yeah, and you got to get 100% buy-in. And how are you going to get 100% buy-in? I mean, obviously, like the intellectual lightweights like Dave Rubin, he's like, he's an easy, you can grab him pretty easy. He goes whichever way the wind blows, but he doesn't really know what's going on all the time.
Right.
Breaker for $10. You want to read it? You're just such a better reader than me.
Sure. Estate tax won't work. All you do is get life insurance in the amount of your estate, then will 100% to charity. When you die, kids get the insurance, charity gets the estate, government gets nothing. I don't know if that's true. If you could, let's see. So he's saying that, okay, you could just get life insurance on whatever your estate's worth and then donate everything to charity. And then, wait a minute, why would that work? Because regardless
can you get a life insurance policy? Like if you have $5 million, can you get a life insurance policy for $5 million? I
don't know. But okay, but let's assume that's true. Okay. Assume you could get a life insurance policy for $5 million. When you die and your children get the life insurance policy, they still have to pay taxes on it. Like,
yes.
Well, why would they not? I don't understand. That's why I don't understand that. I mean, maybe unless there's some rule about insurance that we don't know about.
You might be able to get a life insurance policy that pays the tax. I mean, you can do anything with contracts. That's where I'm with the libertarians 100%. Like freedom to make your own contracts.
Right, but I guess the question is an insurance company going to give an old billionaire, life insurance for $1 billion?
If he pays $10 billion, he'll do it. He'll do it in a heart. They're just going to do the math. They're going to be like, this guy's going to live another 2 years. Let's see, his premiums are $2 billion a year.
There's something that doesn't make sense in terms of private corporations shouldn't be doing. They shouldn't be paying for health insurance. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, our health insurance system's messed up big time over here. Alik on Dusko for $5 says, check out Flash Boys. That's where I learned about the cat and mouse
I've
thing.
read Flash Boys.
Is that a book? I will.
Yeah, it's what's the guy's name?
I'm writing it down right now. I will check it out.
I think it's Michael Lewis. I think that's the guy's name.
Oh yeah, Michael Lewis.
He talks about Flash Boys is the one where they talk about how all these automated, what you were talking about, how there's all these automated microtransactions.
Yeah,
I've going on in the stock market.
I've read most of Michael Lewis's books. So he's the same guy that did Moneyball and
The Big Short.
The Big Short, yeah, both excellent books. So yes, I will get it as soon as the stream is over, most definitely. Stop it with the super chats, Jesus. We need to. We'll watch some of the video and we'll go to that super chat in a second.
But Birth with the
you
second.
You don't have two. You have
you have 8,
Yeah.
right? And you have 8, and 6 of them die. 3 are miscarriages, and 5, you know, and so this
Those were the good old days.
dream that we had
Right.
in 1940 and 1970. Even if I accept
love
the
this.
premises, I'm not sure that that's a realistic dream about what
that was my
human
point.
beings did. Yeah, so
that was the anthropic capitalism. You just
okay.
described it.
Okay, good. So now I don't have to read your article, but it's
There's a little bit more in there. But
no, I'm sure there is. I'm just joking. But the only point I'm going to make, the only point I'm making is that I think that what really has been lost, and this is the part that I'm really focusing on a lot lately, is we can't control the situation around us, but we can control our reactions to the situation. And what I mean by that is these massive systemic changes that we're talking about, we, number one, don't agree on what those systemic changes should be.
Right.
And number two,
or even what they are.
Right, what they are or what they would do, right? Nobody knows what the hell they would do. And with all of that said, the one thing that you can control is the amount of virtue that you yourself pour into your life. And it seems to me in a non...
Virtue with an empty bank account.
Right. So that's a very, when you're talking about the personality types of Republicans and liberals, that's right up there with like the Republican personality type is the world is fucked and you can't change it. So all you can do is change yourself. And the liberal personality type is, I'm going to change the world.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, there are limitations to that. I don't know how he can't acknowledge the fact that the environment makes. If there are plenty of job opportunities out there, another great book on this is Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, which really talks about how the people who have succeeded for very specific reasons, and most of those have to do with outside forces that really were beyond them. So he kind of takes that argument, that the self-made man argument, and kind of just destroys it.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Once people can do the Gattaca genetic manipulation of babies before they're born, instead of people talking about like the education gap or the financial gap or whatever, it's going to be, people are going to be talking about like the intrinsic or the internal motivational gap. Like how motivated people are when they're born, because people have like different energy levels, internally. And if you could start manipulating that, everyone's going to be the type A, Ben Shapiro go-getter.
Don't you think that energy level though is a feedback on the environment? Like if there is a ton of opportunity, if there's a ton of opportunity out there, I think people have a greater energy level. I honestly think they do.
Of course. There's when people are, when they're like what they were talking about earlier, when people could see 30 years ahead that there was a path for them towards the American dream. Yeah, people are going to be more motivated.
Right.
But there's always the people that just the biology of their motivation or not being motivated, is going to overpass any sort of there's environmental effects.
No motivation.
Right.
I mean, there are people. I've met people like that are just unmotivated by anything. Even though there's huge opportunities, and I'm going, look, you have this opportunity, and they're like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, no, I have met people like that.
Virtuous position that because somebody else is earning more than you, you are therefore worse off. And so what we really have lost, I think, and this may be an outgrowth. I mean, there's an argument to be made. I know Jonah Goldberg makes this argument, for example, that sort of late stage capitalism or advanced capitalism tends to lead to this rat race where we are looking at what the guy next door to us has. But the lack of just basic virtue in the position that I am worse off because my neighbor is better off, even though I have more stuff than I did 5 years ago. The lack of inculcation of any sense of what I would call basic morality is having a significant impact.
Well, one of the things that's happening clearly in the tour that I'm doing and the people that I'm talking to is I'm actually making a variant of that case. I said that, and it's probably in keeping with your vision as well. So let's imagine that a rising tide does lift all boats, and that's actually happening, but we're purchasing at the price of a certain degree of predictability and stability into the future. That seems quite clear. And that's exaggerated by this incredibly rapid rate of technological change. It's like, okay, so how do we tolerate all that uncertainty, given that we're also deriving substantial benefit from it? We don't want to mess it up. And what I've been suggesting to my audiences is get your act together as much as you possibly can, because the way that you deal with uncertainty is by being prepared for anything and everything that's going to come your way. And so you want to put yourself together so that when the difficult decisions come along, even though we can't predict what they are, you're going to be in the best possible
But there's a
solution.
new message here. The new message is that whatever.
So it's kind of what annoys me.
I want to tell somebody
with with Ben Shapiro and with a lot of the other people on the right using Jordan Peterson, because he's really, with his message, he's not talking about politics. He's really talking about on this individual level for how people should act to be healthy and successful in their life, which I agree with. But then a lot of people on the right hear that and they kind of try to transform that into a justification for social policy or for economic policy. And I don't think that's where Jordan Peterson is really coming from at all.
Yeah. He's not as, he's more amenable to the idea that there are people in situations beyond their control.
Right.
Yeah, but nobody's really put that question to him directly.
Well, I don't think he would want to answer it because he's trying not to, he's trying not to, put himself in a political position to push off half his audience.
Yeah, Eric should ask him right now. Just throw it down. This was a live show. He should have asked him.
Very often I hear parents, we have 2 children and one of them is living at home. And I say, okay, let me explain in part why your child may be living at home when you're disappointed that that's happening, right? And so I go through the economics argument. The person feels better. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Or I explain, here's why you're not able to catch up to your parents. It's not all about your personal failure, right? And so the idea is that personal responsibility is something that we need and we also can't have, right? It's too dangerous. You have to do this tailored message. And I think you've been intuiting this. Here's the portion of your life that you're responsible for. And we're going to delineate it. And if your room isn't cleaned up, it's not because of the government. Right? That was your point. Saying, and this is, again, you and I are going to have to do this at some point. This is a great country. And, well, if you put your mind to making money, then it may be the case that stick-to-itiveness and passing the marshmallow test and being inventive and creative works. But there are a lot of people who are given a very different message. And they grow up being told, be a good person and work hard. And a lot of this stuff doesn't work the way it used to. It just doesn't. And lying about it offends me. So I want to say... Look,
ooh, who else does it offend? I know it offends you.
Me? The whining about it?
No, lying about it.
Oh, lying about it. Yeah,
when things aren't working, people are just... this whole stream, you've been offended by that.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. Fuck Ben Shapiro.
Right. Rightfully so. But isn't it great when he beats up on the SJWs? Come on. Isn't
it great? Ben Shapiro wrecks SJW feminist.
Destroyed.
Ben Shapiro destroys Antifa.
Those are so good.
Important. And we need to be able to talk about the role of money. Money is fungible. Everything else is not. So if you make money, then you have lots and lots of options. And we need to give...
This is the one problem that I have with the libertarian position, too, is that it's just so extreme. Where's the middle ground? Where do you draw the line? Jordan Peterson's always talking about we know on the right where the radicals are, and we know on but we don't quite know where the radicals are on the left. Where are the radicals on the libertarian side? They're all radical, right? Where are the normal ones?
Well, it's probably nothing to worry about because it's hard to envision an authoritarian libertarian takeover of the country.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're the race thing. They're not racist. Yeah.
Right. Well, if they're actual libertarians, there's some alt-right libertarians.
People the idea that that's a good thing to pursue if they have any hope and dream. But it's also the case that fundamentally what your message is you have to make the copay. And the copay is the part of your life that you absolutely control. And if that's out of control, don't expect anyone else to take any sympathy.
Well, then you can also if that part of your life is in order.
He got interrupted. Drink.
You can also make a more credible argument for the existence of unreasonable systemic impediments. Because you can say to yourself, look, I put everything into this, and then you can make a credible case.
This is why this is the attractive version of the personal responsibility thing. But the point...
So we have another problem here with our discussion.
Drink.
Discussion about dispossession, because like one of the things that's bothered me about the left and the right is the right tends to think, well, if you just got your act together and worked hard, you can make it, and the left tends to think, well, everybody's the same, and if you removed systemic impediments, then everybody could do whatever they needed to do. Well, the left is wrong because there's real diversity.
Clip it. That's all we need to say. That's all we need to say. That's the end of the conversation.
That the left is the one extreme and the right is the other extreme.
Yeah, and they're both wrong and stupid.
Yeah, you need to wind the snake of the chaos and order. I love that graphic that you use of Jordan Peterson in your video where he's like, shwa, shwa.
Which one?
You use some graphic where he's like, balance, bringing balance.
Oh, you mean the Avatar graphic.
Yeah. That's a good one.
And Kathy Newman comes in as Cora. Let's
read some super chats. Alec on Dusko for $5. We'll make our own society in the asteroids with blackjack and hookers. Oh, I like it. You guys, seriously, I want to visit the libertarian utopia. I just don't want to live there. Okay.
I mean, it would be fine to live there if it's like communism. It'd be fine to live there if everyone, was with the ideals and was a good person.
In fact, forget the society. Wait, just soft-spoken government with big sticks. No.
And hookers.
And Breaker for $5 says, no tax on life insurance or charity. Premiums can be tax deductible. So, yeah, I'm going to look into this.
Okay, maybe Breaker found a way to beat the system.
All of these, first of all, that's one of the places where I highly agree with the libertarians is the fact that government is ultimately corruptible. And these ways,
of course, yeah.
These ways around the system aren't bugs a lot of times, but rather features.
Right.
Like they're put in there for the campaign donors and the wealthy people that can find them and take advantage of them. So it's very much a quid pro quo that goes on.
Of course. I mean, who's got the $5 million to pass on to their children? Not the average white-collar American.
Yeah, exactly. But this is the thing that offends the libertarian sensibilities, and it offends the liberals' sensibilities at the same time. Like it offends conservative sensibilities too. Nobody likes corruption.
Right.
No one likes corruption. Out of those 6 moral foundations, the Fairness Cheating Foundation is the one that everybody subscribes to because nobody likes cheaters. Nobody.
Unless they're the ones cheating.
Especially when they're rich. Yeah, but when you're cheating, you're like, no, this is me taking advantage of the market.
Exactly.
This is free market optimism here.
That's just the way the world works.
Exactly.
But the right is wrong because there's a real diversity of ability. And so, for example, there is a distribution of IQ, which is real. And if the psychometric data basically indicate that if you have an IQ of less than 90,
he loves saying psychometric data, doesn't he? He loves that word.
It's his favorite word.
Which is about 15-20% of the population. You actually can't read well enough to follow instructions.
Yeah, and that's 20% of the population. Now, where do you think the bottom of the hierarchy is stacking? These are the people that are going to pull them up by their bootstraps? Come on.
That's hard to imagine, though. That 20% can't read instructions. I don't know. It seems too high to me.
I might be in that 20%. I can't even read the super chats. Man Faces World for $2 says Peter Thiel wants to build city in
international waters.
International waters. That's a misspelling though. So that one's
isn't he one? Is he the one? Someone wanted to build a city out of containers in the water or something.
Yeah. Why don't they just go live on the Great Garbage Patch? They're set.
Doesn't Eric Weinstein have some connection to Peter Thiel? Isn't that how he made his money? I
believe so, yeah.
That's weird because they're complete opposite ends of the political spectrum.
Well, he's been watching Peter Thiel just take advantage of people his whole life. Why do you think why do you think he's in this position?
Exactly.
He's like, oh my God, I've made a deal with the devil.
So I looked it up and
bad.
He's the managing director of Thiel Capital.
Oh, I knew it. He feels
so
awful. He feels awful. He probably on Christmas Eve probably takes turkeys to all the people. Thiel's just like, like you can rummage through this dump over here for your Christmas dinner.
That's so interesting, though. In a million years, would you ever think that the managing director of like a capital investment firm would be like super left wing?
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. I mean, it's guilt, right? It's all just guilt.
Right, but usually people, they go the opposite route of guilt. They don't want to feel guilty, so.
Yeah. Look at him. Look at that face. He's just riddled with guilt. He's like, I have Peterson at my disposal. This guy's got a 165 IQ. He could justify anything, and I won't take him up on it. I have morals.
I'd say, well, that can be rectified, say, through educational means and so forth, and the evidence for that is pretty damn thin. And so the problem with a society that's meritocratic, fundamentally, even if it's meritocratic based on character, is that there's still going to be individual differences that seem to be innate, that are going to produce radically unequal outcomes, many of which are painful.
Yes, but the thing that you will have a hard time convincing me of, having gone through the PhD system in the sciences, is that some of the world's most brilliant people hold PhDs in the sciences. And I came up at a time when, in the early 90s, these people were told that the world was their oyster and that we were desperately in need of scientists. And I remember a friend of mine being told that he had a $14,000 a year job offer post-PhD from MIT with a pregnant wife. Mm-hmm. And the person who offered it was like, "This is great. We can get people for pennies."
And that person was Peter Thiel.
Right.
And why was that? It was because of something that came out of the National Academy of Sciences and the National Science Foundation to slam American workers in the sector. This is very, very important. It had predicted that people would be paid 6 figures for PhDs, which was, larger than they had been paid for a long time. And it was the meddling with the market. The thing that I don't like about the personal responsibility issue is that individuals should not be solving the problems of, let's say, tech groups getting together and say, we will not poach each other's employees. That, like, the market has to work for people, not just institutions. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a sector in which you can make the market work,
that's a good a good regulation point. When you have all the tech companies get together and say, we're not going to hire each other's workers, so there's no competition for labor. So workers are basically at their mercy. I mean, how do you solve that problem without government regulation?
Yeah. The whole idea behind government intervention is when people start doing this. Like, government intervention solves organized crime. Like,
and it's supposed to solve monopolies. I mean, it doesn't, but it's supposed to.
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah.
You have this feeling of anybody.
Government is the only. Corporations are superorganisms, and government is the only superorganism that can go to bat that can stand up against them. A lot of times, you made a video where you were talking about the YouTube demonetization thing, and you were talking about how Google and some other tech giants, or the legacy media advertisers, were going up against each other, and the little guys, we're just the little people that are getting stomped on as these two giants belted out. And really, government, it just gives us an opportunity to have a fighter in that ring, in the giants' ring.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise,
subjugation. And if you think regulation is bad, wait till subjugation comes.
It's kind of like, we had the time without government regulation. It's monarchies.
Yeah.
Where the people in power just choose whatever they want.
Yeah, the law doesn't apply to them. Equal protection under the law doesn't exist. Like, the way that you get wealthy is you make different rules for you than other people.
Or you just take people's stuff.
Sure. But the rule would be, hey, no stealing from rich people. But stealing from poor people, that's fine. That's okay, perfectly acceptable.
And I know that will, I'm not saying that libertarianism is the same as monarchies or anything. I know that will piss them off. I'm just saying, to me, I see that's the path of getting rid of government regulations and tiny government, it's, that's what happens. It's hard for me to see it any other way.
Libertarians would not like monarchy. I mean, that would
No, of course not.
That's hell as well.
But to me, I see that's the cynicism. As I see, that's what happens when you enact those policies, is you get the monarchies.
Yeah, you're a good cynic. Man Faces World says 20% of the U.S. are illiterate. 100% are Twitter users. I'm gonna have to steal that one.
You can tweet it out.
A leak on Dosco for $2 says temperance caused the mob. That's extreme, though. Yeah. Agreed.
Okay. Was he talking about like the anti-alcohol people?
Yeah.
Oh, the mob. He means like literally the mob, not like the idea of a mob.
They made alcohol illegal.
Right. Yeah.
Got to know your limits.
Definitely.
Don't make alcohol illegal.
There's a good example of a terrible regulation.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But with society, what I'm saying about it being so complicated is you don't really know how far you can go until you go there, and then you dial it back. But that's kind of how society evolves over time. It's like a little bit forward, a little bit back.
He can do this, and in fact, what you need to do is you need to migrate.
You raise the taxes just a little tiny bit.
To these sectors, because there are other sectors where you have, let's say, government intervention, which says we are going to interfere with the free working of the market, or we are not going to take into account that some people produce public goods. And so it's very important to me to understand that some people are coming out of very different circumstances in which it's very unlikely that they will be able to make their world grow and blossom, and that other people of extraordinary ability and high IQ and work ethic find themselves not fighting forces that they don't even understand.
Well, this is the sort of criticism that's often levied at me, because people say, well, you don't take...
Was that an interruption? I think drink.
Systemic problems sufficiently into account. And so that's a nice outline of the systemic problems.
When the banks decided that they should be self-regulating with respect to their gearing ratios or the risk, there was one guy who wrote in at this SEC hearing to allow these investment banks to, do the last little bit before 2008 blew up everything. This guy, Len Bollet, who was a computer consultant to banks. It's like one guy in the entire country saw a disaster coming and got involved in this internal game that was by banks for banks. And so what's very important to me is to understand, when you have bad behavior by institutions, it is pathological to put that responsibility on individual shoulders.
Well, but the only coda I would make to that, and I think that's a fair comment, is that what I'm hoping and what I'm trying to convince people of is that their ethical responsibility, which is partly to further their own development to the degree that they can, does extend to the community, is that you want to make ethical citizens so that they don't make mistakes that corrupt the operation of the system at a systemic level. The best way to do that, in my estimation, over the long run, is to concentrate on the ethical behavior of the sovereign citizen. Now, that doesn't address the systemic problems that are already in place.
The systems affect more people. That means that when people make vague accusations about systems that are dysfunctional, then it's not helpful. Yeah. Now, what I see is not, you're making very specific criticisms of very specific institutions in very specific ways. Right. And that's useful, because then we can actually have a discussion about where those systems go wrong. So you can have a discussion about...
You're not criticizing the patriarchy.
But I'm not going to have a discussion.
What's that?
Shapiro's like, it's very, Eric's being useful because he's pointing out specific problems with the system, and we can have a discussion about that. But then he's not going to address like the specifics, at all.
Yeah, he's great at arguing against any of these points. We got a breaker for $2. Stop raising taxes and cut spending, you dillwad. I'm only talking about raising taxes on rich people, okay? I want to lower your taxes. You don't know.
Breaker could be a multimillionaire.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to tax the shit out of you. And I'm with you. I mean, there is bloated spending. The Republicans always talk about cutting spending. They do as soon as they get in office. Like, let's give another 20 billion trillion to the military. It's like,
right. That's what I meant when I was saying that the Republicans just take advantage of libertarians, because they cut taxes, but then they just shift spending. They don't cut spending; they just shift it around somewhere that they want.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. Cut spending. The difficult thing about any of these debates is you got to really look at the numbers, and nobody really looks at the numbers. Well, I'm sure people do.
Too complicated.
Breaker probably has looked at the numbers, so.
Well, he's giving us money, so he is looking at the numbers. He's a very smart individual.
Dive in. Pseudo analysis for $10 says, feudalism is actually better than feudalistic states. A true libertarian supports monarchy because monarchs actually own the domain privately. Democratic states are based on public property. Reid. I don't know how to respond to that. Thank you for the $10 super chat. I'm telling you, but monarchy just nothing can turn me libertarian quicker than a monarchy. I just said can't imagine.
Well, he's saying true libertarians support monarchy.
Yeah, but I'm baffled by that.
I mean, I guess you could make that argument. I feel like most libertarians wouldn't, because they would have a problem with, because they're all about the rights of the individual and all that, sovereign individual.
He's saying the monarchy owns all the property, so.
Right, but they're still the people don't have individual rights typically in a feudalistic society.
In a feudalistic society, they have they control the courts. You don't really have any recourse against the monarch.
Right.
Yeah. Like if the monarch wants to come in and just take all your stuff, then you can't really. I mean, they literally had laws like you can't sue noblemen.
Right.
Like you have to have a certain amount of status before you can actually even have redress against a noble.
But fuck the libertarians. They're just like monarchies.
Are we going that far?
We're going that far.
Man faces world for $2. Check out PayPal Mafia, founders of YouTube, Yelp, Tesla. I thought.
Is that like a video or a book or something?
Not sure.
PayPal Mafia.
We'll check it out.
No, I'm trying to crowd that out, and part of the point is that almost nobody in the regular commentariat wants to talk to me about.
Ooh, are we part of the commentariat? I like that word. The new commentariat. We'll be nobility.
Oh God!
What went wrong with our immigration policy?
Philosophers in Greek time being like, "Oh yes, philosophers. They were like the highest class of people."
Everybody always thinks whatever class they're in is the highest class.
Exactly.
Policy. How do we get into trouble with mortgage-backed securities? Right. What's going on with CPI adjustment? Yeah.
Because the problem
the problem is talking to mathematicians. I'm starting to realize. Eric knows all this stuff. Everyone take a drink. He got interrupted again. He got full on cut off. You have to take 2 drinks.
Actually, we got something better going on here. So
good to have these conversations because he knows all the numbers because that was his fucking job.
Totally, yeah.
Let's not worry about them. But we only have about 10 minutes left because you got a hard out. So I thought
now this is ultimate Rubin right here. Remember what I was saying at the beginning of the stream about how Rubin just has the stupidest intros to open people up? Like,
yeah.
Now it's like, let's cut off this very interesting conversation here. And I'll ask one of the dumbest questions I can possibly think of.
I was thinking this exact same thing.
Here we go.
We do a little self-therapy while we're here. So I want to ask you each one thing. I'll even answer it myself.
Because I'm part of the intellectual dark web, too. I get to answer.
And then we can all sort of comment. I'll start there. If you had one blind spot, what do you think it might be? I've asked you guys.
This is the most retarded question ever. My one blind spot. Let me think. Well, is it a blind spot? Maybe I don't know what it is.
It's you interrupting us.
It's us. It's anyone agreeing that you were in the intellectual dark web.
Some version of all of this before. But a lot changes over the time that we keep doing this. But if there was something,
I feel a copyright strike coming on for this video. I don't know what it is. I believe this is fair use.
That you thought was your personal blind spot, what would it be?
Well, I would say I don't know if I can identify a specific
Yeah, see, he's like, wait, I have 108. I have 186 IQ here. What the fuck are you talking about, Dave? How am I supposed to identify my blind spot? There's things that we know, and there's things that we know we don't know.
Was it the unknown unknowns?
This is the unknowns. Hey, everybody, we have about 10 minutes here, so let's talk about all the things we don't know.
So how do I know that the color blue that you see is the same color blue that I see?
Oh, I know. We should just, it's one for the history books.
blind spot, but I could say in general, I know perfectly well that I don't know enough about a lot of the things that I need to know about to make the sorts of arguments that I'm making. Like, I'm painfully aware, and increasingly aware, I would say, of just how much I don't know, how much more I need to be reading and concentrating on to flesh out what I have to say. Like, I don't know enough about economics, barely anything. I don't know a lot about history, barely anything. And so I'm more and more aware of how much I don't know. And now
that's strange of him to say that he doesn't know much about history, because he's talking about history all the time. That's like a major part of his argument.
Well, I guess he probably knows a lot about the specific niches that he focuses on.
Yeah.
But like, if you were to say, what were the causes of World War I and the fallout of that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't know anything about it.
Yeah, he knows about the communist stuff.
Right.
I don't know if that's the kind of blind spot that you were thinking of, but it's terrifying to comprehend that and still try to move forward in this sort of space.
It makes it tough to be a public person these days, right? Because everyone wants you to know everything about everything all the time.
Well, you end up with the problem that Eric was just describing, which is, the reason that people won't contend with you is because you force them to move from their low-resolution ideological certainties into domains where specific knowledge is necessary. You instantly expose everyone's ignorance. It's like, that's hard on the people that you're having the discussion with, but the devil is in the details.
Up until the last sentence, I would say that I would love you to shorten that and put it on a bumper sticker for me, because it was a brilliant summary. Yeah.
Blind spot, Shapiro.
I mean, I find it hard to argue with any of that. I mean, I think that, if you're intellectually curious, then that means that you know that you don't know anything. So I agree with everything you just said. I mean, as far as other intellectual blind spots, I mean, or other blind spots generally, I would say that for me, the constant struggle is, I find myself more stressed out now than I was 2 years ago when no one gave a crap what I thought, right? I mean, so the fact is that it's, living a less stressful life in the middle of believing that people actually care what you think. It means you have to take your stuff much more seriously. That's not really a blind spot as much as a concern. And I think that means that, just the commitment to hearing more about things is deeply necessary. But it also means that it just means that your life in many ways is more miserable the more people know about you. And that's not a poor me thing. I love what I do. Yeah. I love the fact that people care what I think. Like, that's what I live for, is that people care what I think.
Is it really? I mean, it's pretty sweet. You got a lot of good stuff going on.
Oh, no, I got a ton of great stuff going on. But the fact is that the risk is higher. And in some ways that makes you a better person. It's almost like the old kind of religious slogan that if you feel God is watching you all the time, then you're more likely to be a better person. Yeah. And there is that feeling like, okay, if I make a mistake, I want to be the first person to notice that I made the mistake and correct that mistake. But that also means that you live with a lot more self-doubt and a lot more second-guessing of yourself than you did, when nobody cared. Yeah. So that's not as much of a blind spot as a concern. The problem with trying to identify your own blind spots is that they're in your blind spot. But
that's why I asked the question. I wanted to make you think a little bit.
Oh my God. That's why I asked the question.
Because I wanted you to not be able to answer it. Even though Shapiro doesn't even really answer. He didn't even try to answer.
He didn't try to answer it at all. And Rubin's like, I have the perfect answer because I'm so smart.
It's funny because just the other day, or it was yesterday actually, I did the Adam Carolla podcast, which he's, it's comedy and he's doing more of a radio show thing, so you speak a little more freely. And it
wasn't Bill Maher, but
was about to say something very politically incorrect, and I obviously don't have a problem doing that generally, especially when I'm doing comedy. And just for a moment, I had you sort of ring in my head about be careful about your words, and I was like, I just don't feel like offering up one extra comment.
Right, life is less fun that way, right? Because it's like the stuff that you felt like you could say a year ago. Now you realize not only maybe you shouldn't have said it a year ago, but also you feel like you're constantly saying? Am I curbing myself because I'm afraid, or am I curbing myself because it's the right thing to do to curb myself here? And that's an interesting sort of calculus you have to do all the time.
Yeah.
I think if you're concerned that it's because of fear, then you might want to take the risk of saying it. You know, because I've tried to wrestle with that problem. Is like, you know, or maybe am I avoiding this because I think it's bad or because I don't want to take on the responsibility? If you have suspicions about that, then you should do it. Because I think you should arm yourself against your weaknesses and take that risk. I think it's better developmentally to do that.
All right, I'll answer it for myself, which is a cue off something your brother said to me once, which is that perhaps I have a little PTSD from the left. So my focus on these completely bananas ideas has been so singularly stuck in my mind that maybe it lets some other things slide every now and again. I'm trying to be very aware of that and trying to figure out how to go forward on
So does that mean?
Sounds like he watched Counter Arguments video on him. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. But so here's the question. He asked them what are their blind spots, but then he gave an answer. Like, who cares what his blind spots are? But he just asked the question just so he could give the answer.
Yeah, totally. He's modeling his show after Sam Harris, though. I think that's what he's thinking. But he tells, I don't know if you saw the Counter Arguments video. People should watch that video. It's really good.
For David Rubin?
Yeah, it's on David
Yeah,
Rubin.
I saw it.
But Dave Rubin talks about how his hero is Larry King.
Right.
And all Larry King was an interviewer. Like he asked questions. His goal was to get stuff out of the interview. But Dave Rubin is kind of walking this line where it's half Sam Harris and half interviewer, which I think he gets the best of both worlds there, since he gets to get his ideas out there and have an excuse for taking an opinion in an interview, and have an excuse when he doesn't want to take an opinion in the interview.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, I've never watched Larry King, so I don't know what he's like by comparison. But I always feel like, you know, Rubin dodges the bullet in a not true way with the whole I just let people talk, because like a lot of times I'll see interviews that he does and it's like people say like ridiculous shit or they say very contradictory shit and he doesn't ever. I mean, you can question them on that without having an opinion on the topic, but he just doesn't. He just lets it go. He just lets it float right by.
Chris in the chat is saying, "Oh, Dave Rubin's an okay guy." I totally agree with that sentiment. I don't have anything personally against Dave Rubin, but I do think I agree with Sitch that Dave Rubin lets it go, and I think the reason he lets it go is he's just not paying attention. I mean, just to be brutally honest, I don't think he.
You don't think it's a financial decision that he's just because he wants to get guests?
Well, yeah, maybe that's part of it. Like I'm saying. Yeah, it could be. It could be. But that's more devious, don't you think?
Right. So we've taken.
If he's like, I could have, I should have fought back on that, but I can't because of the money.
So we've taken the reverse stances that we usually take. You're the one saying, "Oh, he's innocent but stupid," and I'm the one saying, "No, he's smart but devious." Usually,
that's both the SJW stance. We're both on the SJW side now because that's what they say about everyone. Yep. Yeah, you're either stupid or evil. Stupid is closer to the innocence, though.
Right.
I mean, I think more can be blamed on stupidity than actual outright evil.
Yeah, usually.
I lean towards stupid, so.
I agree.
Breaker for $5 says, true humility is realizing there are people above you, not that you have equal value to everyone, including people you unironically pedestalize. I don't know that that's actually a word, but I understand what you mean. True humility is realizing there are people above you, not that you have equal value to everyone.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, the problem on the far left is that they want to say that everyone has equal value, which kind of flies in the face of reality. I think that's a lot of the reason why people on the right kind of rebel, because it's so obviously untrue. And they want to structure a world that kind of, I mean, I feel terrible for people. I think definitely temperamentally I am a bleeding heart. So I do have those intuitions inside me, but the world's a kind of a messed up place. I mean, it's sometimes I'm amazed that we have as much as we have with how messed up it is.
Right.
We lucked out in America that we inherited some very inventive institutions. If you read that book, Why Nations Fail, I talk about it a lot, but you gain a complete respect for the institutions that we inherited.
Well, yeah, and it's a miracle. I think it's literally a miracle that the founding fathers were so ideologically driven that they didn't just become the new nobility and take control of the country.
Yeah.
It's literally a miracle that didn't happen.
People did not believe that George Washington would step down as president. People were amazed that actually happened. That's crazy. The peaceful transfer of power is just something. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And what they're talking about in the video about, I mean, the last 50 years was a fluke, but I don't like Ben Shapiro's like, yeah, let it go. No, we have to hang on to it. We have to fight for it.
Oh, Ben Shapiro's looking at the miracle and saying, look at this, the miracle that is, nonviolent passing of power. So thus we should ignore all the problems that exist within it.
Man Pays His World for $5 says, PayPal Mafia. Ooh, we're going to get an answer. PayPal Mafia, a small group of Silicon Valley pioneers, created most of the wealth and original ideas. First in market, top of dominance hierarchy. Now Silicon Valley is passé. This is in the book Outliers. I forget the author of Outliers now. Malcolm Gladwell. He talks about being first to market being one of the most essential things. I mean, we see that on YouTube. There are YouTube giants that are floating around now that they were first to market.
Right. That's how probably most of the really bigger people, they've just been doing it longer than most other people.
Yeah, they jumped in.
I mean, you're a little bit more on the attack.
The PayPal Mafia is basically like the alt-right, in that all the memes that the alt-right created was before the alt-right became white nationalists and were just like trolly conservatives. And they've just been like banking on the memes ever since, the switch.
Than you'd like to be, because
I think I want to ease up on a little bit of the attack on that. I think I've spent the last couple of years it was first me identifying it for myself. Really, I was interviewing all of these people and figuring out that they were often going through the same thing I was, but then it morphed into going on the attack about it. And now I feel like and again I say the word winning with...
So is he a paid attacker for the Koch brothers? Is that what the situation is?
Is who? Rubin?
Yeah.
Who's saying that?
Everyone's saying he's funded by the Koch brothers. You didn't know this?
I didn't know that he that he had funding from the Koch brothers, but I don't think Rubin is, even if he is getting funding from them, I don't believe Rubin is acting in some sort of nefarious way.
Oh, you changed your position.
Well, okay, there's a difference between saying maybe I'm not going to question my guest very stringently in order to get people to show on my show, and I'm going to take money from the Koch brothers and then push some sort of right-wing libertarian ideology that I don't agree with.
When the Koch brothers makes out the check, in the little box what it's for, they write really tiny, and they put like their lists of guests in there. They're like Milo Yiannopoulos, 3 visits. They're like this guy.
Exactly.
They're like, do you think they write Paige Schill in there? Paige Schill.
To Paige Schill. They don't put David Rubin's name. They put Paige Schill.
We don't know if it's that bad.
I don't think so. I hope it's not that
Anna
bad.
accuses him of it being that bad, but
right. But she's jealous.
First of all, Anna says, "Oh, I was the best friends with Dave Rubin. I went and had dinner at his house every single weekend, and he's an idiot." And I'm like, if he's stupid, why are you going to his house once a week? Like,
right.
Come on. Well, the Anna's not very bright either. So, all right, let's keep going.
You know, a little tongue in cheek. But because I do sense something has turned here, that maybe I can get my foot off the gas a little bit on that and focus on the big ideas that I really care about.
I thought about that in relationship to this whole group. It might be nice, but I think we should really be careful to use minimum necessary force.
Yeah.
And
Pseudo-analyst is taken off for $5. He says, one last thing before I go. I'm a propertarian, not libertarian. I value property rights more than the non-aggression principle. Most libertarians obsess over non-aggression. In the book Why Nations Fail, he talks about property rights being one of the essential things to actually get a democracy going. So without property rights, a non-violent government structure is very difficult to get going. So I'm with you there 100%.
Idiocy on the left.
In order in this the whole Dave Rubin Coke thing. I don't know.
You
it
found
seems
pictures
pretty.
of him doing coke. What?
Yes, that's what I found. I found pictures of Dave Rubin doing coke. Apparently, one of the Koch brothers, is on the board of some thing called the Institute for Humane Studies, and that is some one of these bullshit nonprofits, and somehow they have some connection to the Rubin Report.
They wrote him a check. They funded him. They
Right, but
paid
it's
for
like-
that studio. Look, they bought that light. They bought that.
Yeah, but we don't know how
They bought
much. I mean, I think it's not fair to be like, he's some paid Koch brothers shill.
The Rubin Report sign is out, so they could have spent a little more money.
That's because when you light it up, it really says like Koch brothers behind it.
Oh man, we're just having fun, you guys. I hope everyone knows that we're just having fun. Like Dave Rubin, we would like to see the evidence first, and show's got to get funded somehow. So,
Right.
On the extreme right that needs to be pointed out, but it might be better if we did the minimum necessary amount of that, because it also starts to become something you can parody quite easily at some point, and more of delineating what the alternative might be if there was a positive alternative.
Right, because it's like you could.
It will be interesting to see what happens with the IDW as it moves beyond the critique.
Right.
Because what's really unified us, I think, has been a lot the critique, right? The critique of intersectionality and the identity politics. And once we move into the space where we're actually trying to maybe build something together or come to some sort of ideological consonance, then some of these, I hope what I hope is that if we're going to recapitulate the arguments, I hope that we.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be more difficult. That's right. It's going to be impossible. Is the word that you're looking for.
Once the SJWs are gone, this is the ceasefire between the centrist left and centrist right is going to just dissipate.
Isn't this whole group united around the basic idea that the enemy of my enemy is my friend? Isn't that really what's going on?
Well, I think that's a very uncharitable way of looking at it. I think they're kind of more. I think the nice way of saying it is that they're unified around the idea of we need civility and the ability to talk about ideas openly,
right,
regardless of which side is censoring us.
Yes.
Recapitulate the arguments in a more reasonable, cogent, and intelligent way, in terms of the actual political arguments. But I'm not sure that those. I think that none of us, I hope, are dreaming that there will actually be an ideological consonance among the lot of us, because clearly that is something that is not going to happen. I mean, we all have significant disagreements among ourselves on all of these issues.
But how beautiful that is.
P.S. Screw you.
That we're all kind of working through it in our own way, and we're all not going to get to the exact same ending, but we'll kind of go with each other the whole time. Blind spot, Weinstein.
Oh my gosh, it's more or less infinite. I think that I do a terrible job of when somebody's making a bad analytic argument but has intuited their way to the right conclusion, I tend to discount them as if the analytic argument was how they should be thinking. So different kinds of minds who have their variables. If you think nothing of Myers-Briggs, it should at least tell you that there are kinds of minds that aren't working at all like yours. Big Five might be a little bit better. So that's been a huge blind spot. I think that I am very focused on provable institutional betrayal, which I can point at and no one else seems to want to talk about, and that because no one wants to talk about really specific problems with the institutions, It leads me sometimes to not seeing the generic case. I think that I am very much a prisoner of my learning disabilities. I had to sort of construct my own operating system to get around them. Otherwise, if you ever want to see something funny, ask Brett Weinstein to read aloud. Because you just see that he's having to impressionistically figure out what's on the page because he's not tracking it exactly. So I think that that fight to say I'm not stupid.
In terms of what he was talking about, but people aren't criticizing institutions. If the current political climate was reversed, so that it was the right that was the one stifling speech and all this other stuff, if they were the ones acting like SJWs, so they were being the religious right, made a comeback or something. Mm-hmm. How many of the people in this skeptic community do you think would switch sides, wouldn't be where they are now? And how many of the SJWs do you think would suddenly become enlightened free speech, advocates?
All of them.
Except for us, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean,
everyone but us.
Well, it really I was watching, what was I watching? I was watching a really interesting, it was Robert Putnam was doing a talk, and he was talking about how like the religious, the SJWs are, well, there's a huge growth in non-religious people now, right? And
right.
And you think of people on the right being religious and people on the left being non-religious. But he said that it really wasn't until the 60s that happened. Like before the 60s, the left and the right were both religious, and it was a non-issue. They fought over politics and didn't talk about religion. And then the gay thing completely split. And a lot of the reason why people are non-religious now is because they feel like religion is anti-gay. So they left the church because the church seemed anti-gay to them. And he pulled out a stat that literally just blew, well, no, obviously it didn't literally blow my mind. I wouldn't be here right now. But it metaphorically blew my mind. He was saying that, he asked the crowd, which way do you think people chose their church based on their politics or their politics based on their church? So I'll pose the question to you. Which do you think they did?
I think people chose their, I think people's churches influenced their politics more than the other way around.
People chose their religiosity based on their politics, not the other way around. So they're, if they were Republican, they became churchgoers, and if they were Democrat, they stopped going to church altogether. So,
well, I mean, I don't. How do you measure that? I guess
he asked a bunch of questionnaires. He's a social scientist, so
right.
Yeah. The religiosity.
Well, but
there.
Maybe.
And they asked him
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
The main question that they ask is how often do you say grace?
Okay.
Which is a major determinant of religiosity. Because non-religious people don't say, like, religious people say grace at every meal. And non-religious people, they say grace at Christmas.
Right.
So that's one of the major factors measuring secular versus religiosity. So, but the politics, the point of it is the politics are driving people's behavior more than the religiosity is driving people's behavior. But people generally think that it's the other way around. They think the religiosity, that they're more tied to a church than they are tied to their politics. That's completely untrue.
Well, I think that's becoming more true now.
Yeah, no, he says since the 60s.
Right. But I don't know, because I still look at the abortion thing, and to me, the abortion thing seems mostly to be a religious argument for the people that are against it.
Right.
And that's such a huge part of the Republican platform.
He would say, though, that that because they're Republicans, they're against abortion. more than because they're Christian they're against abortion.
But
He's-
but I would say that doesn't make sense, because you would think within terms of, ideologically consistency of the Republican platforms, they should be the ones.
Whoa! Who has ideological consistency?
Well, okay. Well, but that's how I'm looking at it. So that's why I'm saying the religion comes in and it knocks away the ideological consistency. Because if that doesn't, then why are the Republicans against abortion if it's not a religious thing?
Well, it can be both, though. It can easily be both.
Right. Well, I guess it's a chicken and the egg kind of situation.
But he would say that they're more against abortion because they're Republican than because they're religious. See what I'm saying?
I understand that, but I guess what I'm saying was, why are the Republicans against abortion in the first place? And that's the religious.
Because it's gross.
aspect.
Come on.
Okay.
Come on. Jeez. You don't know this stuff?
I don't know this.
Man Faces World has a $5 super chat. Why don't you read some super chats?
A well-known alt-righter gives money to your Patreon. Ipso facto, you become alt-right by adoption or association. When you gain power, it's guilt by association. Right.
Guilt by association is something both sides use, I believe.
Right. Well, that's what he says. When you gain power, that's what it's an easy way to attack someone because it's lazy. You don't have to attack their ideas.
Definitely. You made a comment too that just because I know alt-right people that I don't think of as racist, I don't think they are racist. Otherwise, I would think of them as racist. Because you had said, you had made a comment about alt-right, you had equated alt-right with racist. And I don't think all our alt-right people are racist.
Are you talking about when I said that the alt-right didn't start off as a white ethno movement?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, to me, how can you be in favor of a white ethno state and not be racist by its definition?
Like Japan. Does that mean Japan's racist? I mean, that's the argument they would make.
It depends. Does Japan have a? I don't know what the immigration laws are. First of all, Japan is really racist, so that's a bad. That's a bad. I wouldn't hang my hat on that one.
You have a lower threshold, I guess, for racism, then, or what you would call racism. I would call it ethnocentrism.
When I say racism, I mean you're prejudging someone on the basis of their race. That's racism, right? I mean, I don't know what's the other way to define it.
Well, it depends upon how you're judging them. I mean, is it racist to say when you're saying that Asian people have high IQs, I guess that's technically racist.
It gets complicated because you can say,
but if you're saying that if you're ethnocentric, if you're in favor of maintaining your cultural heritage, is that racist?
Not necessarily, but it's racist.
Not necessarily.
But wait a minute. It's racist to me to say that you think it's impossible for someone of a different skin color to integrate into your society and adopt your culture, which is what the alt-right says.
Yeah, that's racist. But I don't think all alt-right people are saying that, though. There are some alt-right people that are saying that.
Well, what's the basis of advocating for a white ethno state if you're not racist?
Do you think maybe I'm wrong. I don't know that all alt-right people are advocating for an ethno state. Maybe they are.
Well, wait a minute. How would you define? To me, that's how you define alt-right.
Is that they want an ethno state?
They want a white ethno state. I don't. What else? How would you define it if not by that?
Alternative right,
yeah, but it's not like that. It used to be like that, but it's not that.
Plus memes.
It's not. It used to be like that, but it's not that anymore.
Okay. I don't know. We would have to talk to some alt-right people. Where are we at in the super chats?
We read
maybe an alt-right person will donate to my Patreon.
You can tweet it out because you always get people to argue. You say, are all alt-right? Are there any non-racist alt-right people?
Oh, the SJ doubles will be all over that. I'll tweet it out. I'll tweet it out. I'm gonna @ Hugo and Jake in that one. Question: Jake, Hugo. We know
debate
you're
us.
we know you're racist. Give us some feedback on this. Breaker for $5. You've got to serve somebody. At least monarchy. Oh, at least monarchy was honest about power instead of giving power to the delusion of power in the form of the franchise. Instead of giving people the delusion of power in the form of the franchise. I've heard this argument before about how that voting is just an illusion, but I'm in favor of people voting. I think the only way that you get politicians to pay attention to you as an interest group is if you vote.
Well, there's that chart that shows that, recently over the last 30 years, politicians have cared less and less about, how people vote and care more about how people donate to them.
Right.
So I can understand what Breaker is saying, but to me, it's like, okay, well, that's people's fault. That's people's fault because the average person doesn't pay attention and then vote within their own interest. They just vote down the party lines.
Right.
And that's how politicians bank off of that. So
it is a bit of laziness because the environment has been good. But if the environment gets bad, more and more people will vote. They'll want.
Yeah, but even then, they don't know. They didn't like the Occupy Wall Street people. Like they were accidentally right that the banks were the problem. Were the cause of the housing crash. They didn't know it. Those fucking idiots. They didn't understand the complexities of the situation.
That's accidentally right. Couldn't be more right on the money. Breaker for $2 says racism by definition implies an irrational bias. See,
I'm not sure. Well,
point.
I guess I don't know if I agree with that.
I guess it's not irrational if we know that.
I guess it's no, because I guess it comes down to
if we know Asians are bad drivers. It ain't irrational, man.
Okay, I guess it comes down to what's the difference between prejudice and racist. Because I always assumed prejudice just was. That racism is just a form of prejudice based on race.
Ethnocentrism, though, isn't irrational. It really
but
isn't.
That's what I'm saying. I don't agree with the idea that it has to be irrational.
Yeah, but what they're saying is there is a rational argument to be made for ethnocentrism, which I agree with. There is a rational argument.
But I'm saying that you can make some sort of rational argument to be racist. That doesn't mean you're not racist.
But the problem is that other people on the other side take it too far. They if you aren't in favor of diversity, then you're a racist.
Of course, but we all agree that
if you're not in favor of diversity, if you're not in favor of open borders, are you a racist?
Right. Yeah. Of course. And no one. I'm assuming no one.
Of course, you're a racist.
This chat
you're not a racist.
is. Of course, you're not a racist.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm assuming no one in our chat is, in the SJW camp on that regard.
Man faces the world for $2. PSA greater than. Why don't you have a Patreon? Got Koch brothers money? He does, man. He does.
I do got that Koch brothers money. Well, actually, no. I got the George Soros money. What are you talking about?
He messaged me about a Patreon. That's a good question. What's going on with your Patreon?
I got to figure out how to do the tiers. That's why I messaged you. Yeah. I want to do the Patreon chats.
Give us your feedback on whether or not you think he should do monthly or per video. I told him to do per month, so let's polish this video off. And I want to do like just the first 1 minute of this video, just so you guys can see how crazy this is.
Only the first 1 minute. Yeah. It's almost 4 hours.
Are we? No, we're oh shit. Shut up.
Probably distorted me a great deal, having to build my own architecture. And I think
we can safely say you're not stupid. So I think.
All right, I think one last thing.
Notice he's not talking to Dave Rubin.
Oh, how dare you!
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that I'm most worried about is that fighting the supposedly empathic army of people trying to destroy conversation itself has had a very negative impact on my empathy for exactly the people that they want me to have empathy for.
Mm-hmm. Racist.
And I think that it's very important for all of us to say, okay, what's the steel manning of that position, and to make an extra effort when people are making absolutely non-empathic arguments trying to destroy you and fry you, to think about the empathy that you want to have for whatever went wrong in their lives.
It might be fun at some point to conjure up a panel where some of the people that are in this group take the leftist position and defend it in every possible way, you know, right from the postmodern conclusions, which, you know, I think are worthy of substantial skepticism, to the notion of the reality of the dispossessed and the presence of systemic oppression and all of that, and to make the case as brutally as we possibly can. I think that would be useful.
Like I will not.
See, he just said Michael Eric Dyson did so crappy in that debate that he wants to argue Michael Eric Dyson's position for him.
Right.
Steel man those tactics.
Yeah.
But I will,
No, not
course,
the tactics, but
Yeah,
the
I'm with
content,
you.
because then we could, because it doesn't seem like we've been able to have the debate with anybody who can carry the debate. So it might be really useful
Well, I think
to.
Brett and I have been trying, but it's hard because we're spending most of our energy.
Fending off the
Well,
attacks.
I think we've all been
Fending off
trying.
the tactics.
The tactics, that's exactly
Yeah.
the point.
Yeah.
It's not the conclusions.
All right, we got to move on. Jordan and I are going to Long Beach tonight. You're going to San Francisco. You're going back to Daily Wire. You guys are doing something for July 4th, right?
Yeah, July 4th. So July 2nd, we're going to be doing a special episode of Daily Wire Backstage. That's me. That's
So we can end it there, right? I'm not going to get in
Right.
trouble if I stop here. Oh, so
No.
so this Nellie Bowles is the girl who is the journalist who did the reporting on James Damore and also did the hit piece on Jordan Peterson where she used the term enforced monogamy.
Thanks so much for joining us for another Facebook Live with the New York Times. I'm here with my colleague Nellie Bowles. I'm Katie Benner. I'm a tech reporter here at the Times, and I work with Nellie, who just published a story this weekend called Push for Gender Equality in Tech. Some men say that it's gone too far. A story that addresses the idea that there's a backlash growing against women in tech who have been speaking out about the way they've been treated. So Nellie, I'm super excited to talk to you about this, and I would love to just begin with you explaining a little bit about the impetus for the story. You know, what led to this piece, and why did you think it was important to write?
Yeah, thanks for having me back on our Facebook Live chats. I liked our last one. Okay, this backlash is happening. The men's rights movement is finding allies here in Silicon Valley. We have to shine the light on that. And that's my job. It's not about like finding the world that I want. As a reporter, I started noticing some of these conversations and some of this backlash, and I started seeing it online. And I thought it was a really important thing to cover.
It's interesting that you say
was
that
impetus.
too.
Thoughts?
I like what Space Paradox said. I'm going to die inside. That is my thought.
Just the idea, like she's dead set against she has this idea that MRAs are coming into Silicon Valley. MRAs are men's rights activists. Like, doesn't that make you against men's rights?
Right, and the people that could be classified as MRAs are like, what is that, like 0.00001% of the population? Like, that's such a tiny. There's probably more alt-righters than there are MRAs, I would wager.
Yeah. I don't know how you feel about MRAs. I have no problem with MRAs. I think they're
weasels. Didn't you?
They have legitimate beef, man. They have legitimate beef.
I think they have legitimate grievances, but the conclusion is completely fucked.
I don't know what conclusion are you talking about, basically?
Well, the conclusion that, you know, women are all terrible by the nature of their sex.
Oh yeah.
And you shouldn't, you know.
But I follow some. There's some like Ear for Men is one of the channels that I follow. Like that guy doesn't seem to be, you know, all women are evil.
My only interaction with and looking into MRAs are like, you know, actually, no, you're right. What am I saying? I'm sorry. I'm apologizing to MRAs. I'm confusing MRAs with MGTOW.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I take it back. I'm talking about MGTOW. I'm not talking about MRAs.
Okay. Yeah, the MRAs tend to be reasonable, rational. The movie The Red Pill with, I can't remember the name of the girl, but the name of the filmmaker, but yeah. So I just want to give a little taste of that. We can't hit 4 hours on this stream, otherwise I'm going to get in big trouble. So I'm already in big trouble. We're at 3.5 hours. So let us know in the comments below if this stream was too long or too short. We had talked about putting some clips out. I was thinking that we might try to do one of these a week and also clip up some moments from the streams and do daily uploads to see if we can revive my Friend of Forever channel. We might actually do this on another channel if it's fun and people like what we're doing. So if you have ideas for something that you think we should cover or take a look at, obviously leave us some links in the comments. Do you want to say anything before I end the stream?
Subscribe to my Patreon whenever I get it up.
Yeah. Do you subscribe? There's a subscribe link in the description to his channel. And do you want any formal apology to Dave Rubin? I feel like you were kind of hard on him this whole stream. So.
Oh, me? I was the one. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I was going to tell you, we need to have the Hugo and Jake no ad hominem rule when you're talking about Dave Rubin.
But it's so much fun, man. Come on. They love a little ad hominem. So, oh, damn you guys. Your super chats. Breaker for $5 says MGTOW is what happens when MRAs don't get anything done in regards of greater society. Gynocentrism is out of control. I a little bit think gynocentrism is out of control. Maybe I'm the more extreme than you on that, Sitch.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't really know. I'd have to know what people mean by gynocentrism.
Yeah.
To really delve into that. I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of complaints about the MRAs have that are completely on the money.
Yeah.
I've seen the Red Pill movie. It's very accurate. So there's a lot of that stuff going on.
We need to fight for the patriarchy. What are you doing?
That's right.
Man Faces World for $2. You should seriously do a podcast. Well, we're just going to kind of play it by ear and see what happens. So I am amazed that our monk thing got like 12,000 views, but you did plug it on your main channel. So, and I think a lot of people like you doing the off the cuff stuff. So,
right.
And all I ever do is off the cuff stuff. This is a streaming channel now.
So when I told you that, I predicted the future is what you're saying. I created reality.
Damn you. I hate it. That's Soros money. All right. Take care, everyone.